Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, and it's once again on a Friday, but at least the next one won't be, and there will be a few that will be on the Sunday, of course, as we approach the very end of the campaign. For UCL Fantasy, there's going to be another deadline on Tuesday, and in the build-up to that, I'll produce the best squad for Matchday 16, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals, as well as my own team selection with 3 transfers at my disposal in the Champions League, but only 2 when it comes to the Premier League, and I've got 1 chip left in the triple captain, which will be deployed in Double Gameweek phase 6 on Erling Haaland. And in the build up to that next deadline, of course, I'll be doing the transfer tips, the best wildcard squad, and my team selection. And that's where I can use all 3 of my free transfers. My current plan when it comes to this week is to roll, and I've got a few benching dilemmas, especially in my defensive line. One of Cucurella, Hill, or Van Heck will be on the bench, but both Senesi and O'Reilly will start, with Darlow over Bruggen in the midfield as well. Having Tavernier first on the bench might not be ideal, to be fair, but I've got Pascal Gross away to Newcastle with Palmer, Semenyo, and Bruno Fernandes, who is my vice, but I've gone for Erling Haaland as my captain, who plays on Monday night, alongside Joao Pedro and Calvert-Lewin in that front 3. I'll get straight into your questions as always, and later on I'll delve into some stats, predicted lineups as well, which I finalised this morning. And let's start with the first question, which is by Isaiah, who puts his team for the game week: Raya, Gabriel, Hill, O'Reilly, Bogle, Palmer, Semenyo, Bruno, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland captain, Joao Pedro, with Harry Wilson, Tavernier, Van Heck on the bench. Mamadashvili is my squad good enough? Assuming that you're not bench boosting anytime soon, I'd say yes, it's absolutely fine. But going into 36, you might want some Palace players. I wouldn't say it's a priority to triple up, but having at least 1 or 2 options would be ideal. And Daniel Munoz would definitely spring to mind. At least you've got double Arsenal defence, which I don't have. They are top of the clean sheet odds, but only just. With Leeds United in second, you're going to see the odds later on in this video. But I think with the way you've ordered your bench, I'd probably change it a little bit. I'd arguably have Tavernier over Wilson, and there's even a case to start Van Heck, but I think you have ordered your starting 11 correctly, and the captaincy is also something that I agree with at this moment in time. Sam puts a squad as well. What should I do? 1 free transfer. My rival has O'Reilly, Gibbs White, Watkins, Rogers, Bowen. Yeah, I can see why you're a bit, I'd say, concerned about that. They are very good players to have for this week, and probably for the next one too, especially in the case of O'Reilly. I'm not a big fan of Scott. I've said this all along, even after he scored against Arsenal. Aronson, he'll have his moments, but not really a quality FPL asset. I think from Leeds United, you're looking at Stack. Obviously, Okafor is yellow flagged right now, so that could be a concern there for Leeds. But I think the rest of your starting 11 is pretty solid. But yeah, I think it might be worth having one of those players that your rival has. I know you're trying to find opportunities, depending on where you are, of course, in the mini league. If you're ahead or behind, that can obviously influence things. But yeah, I think if you're behind, you would be more inclined to go for different options to chase. Having said that, I still think O'Reilly would be worthwhile, but you've already made your bed with the triple up in City, so it might not be worth a free transfer since you've only got 1 available. I think in your case, it's probably worth going for either Gibbs White or an Aston Villa attacker. I think for this week, I do like Bowen for the last 2 game weeks of the season in particular. Against Brentford and Arsenal up next, I'd probably argue his ceiling is low in those matches compared to Newcastle and Leeds to round off the season. So it's a matter of timing, but I'd buy Bowen around game week 37, if you even go there in the end. And I think I would focus on the Aston Villa attackers or Morgan Gibbs-White and just skip O'Reilly entirely. And who should I start? Is Palmer even ready to go for 90 minutes? I'd still start Palmer, but going into 36, I'll probably sell him and spread the funds around. And I'll talk about that in my upcoming team selection. But I think Scott isn't a good FPL asset, and you need more money invested in the midfield. And that's why, oddly enough, selling Palmer could actually be the key to that. So definitely check out my wildcard video, because I talk about the best players in each position, and Palmer does not feature there. Even selling him to someone like Eze, for example, can give you enough funds to upgrade Scott and Aronson, and you can buy some Palace players in the process. But I think Daniel Munoz would be at the top of the agenda when it comes to Double Gameweek 36. And also Robert Sanchez. I don't like goalkeeper transfers, but yeah, I think Sanchez is pretty poor. And I don't see Chelsea keeping many, if any, clean sheets from now until the end of the campaign. Even in their plum fixtures, so to speak, against Nottingham Forest and Tottenham. And I don't think Forest is a particularly easy game right now. So yeah, a few issues, I'd say, with the team. But overall, I think it's about prioritizing, and I would try to focus your moves in the midfield more than anything else. Duarte says, Bom dia, Dylan. I have 3 Bournemouth and 3 Brighton assets. Should I bring in Crystal Palace this week or roll and do it next week? I'd do it next week, and there could be rotation, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if a few key assets like Mateta, Sarr, and even Wharton were on the bench. I mean, I say assets. Wharton isn't really an important FPL asset, but he is important for Crystal Palace and how they play. So I'll show you my predicted lineup later, but I think the best call is to save that for Gameweek 36. I think it'll be quite low scoring in that game between Bournemouth Palace, either 1-0 or 1-1, but I don't think Palace will get all 3 points. Couple more games before the end of the season. How do you feel about the FPL performance? Pretty mixed bag. Some pretty solid displays recently, but still not quite where I want to be. A few regrets on the free hits, especially for the first half and the second half of the campaign, mainly with Mohamed Salah involved, but it is what it is. Time already flies fast. It's already 2 months before the World Cup. Well, technically it's only 1 month. The World Cup will start in June, so yeah, time definitely flies. Man City are finished, says Bogle, Aronson and DCL to do well today, and also would be their World Cup fantasy in 2026. There will be World Cup fantasy. In terms of it being covered on the channel, if people want to see it, and I've been sort of prodding that in recent videos, then I would be more than open to doing so, as long as I can find that balance between other commitments and also this, because, yeah, I've been fully at it all season for FPL and UCL fantasy, even the Club World Cup last summer, so there haven't really been any breaks for me. Maybe the odd week or two, but yeah, it's pretty much been full all season. Ravin says, bench boost this game, 2 free transfers, Raya, Gehi, Hill, Gabriel, Enzo, Palmer, Cherky, Tavernier, Bruno, Haaland, DCL, with Darlow, Strauch, Welbeck, Senesi on the bench. I'll be honest, I'd start Senesi over Hill, but that's just a personal take of mine. And having both Darlow and Strauch on the bench, I mean, that could be bench boostable, if you will. In terms of Enzo or Palmer, I guess I prefer Palmer, but Enzo Fernandez obviously scored the winning goal against Leeds United in the FA Cup semi-finals. I'd consider starting both of them over Tavernier, even though Nottingham Forest have been quite solid. They've got a few injury problems at the moment. I think Murillo's one of them. Also, Aina might be a doubt for this game, amongst others. Sangari's another one, so Dominguez could replace him in the midfield. So I think Chelsea have an opportunity to score a goal or two and maybe even win the game, but I've gone for a 1-1 in that particular match. Start Welbeck or Tavernier? I'd start Welbeck. He has a good record against Newcastle. Hey Dylan, on bench boost this week and triple captain next. I have Kelleher, Sarr, Mukiele, Van Heck. It's not too shabby, but I'm not sure what your starting 11 looks like. I'm aware of Sarr is benched, which could happen. It's a bit of a failed bench boost, but I don't like the chip, to be honest. I don't think Sarr starts, and that's one of my main concerns going into Gameweek 36. I think Brennan Johnson could actually start those matches in the Premier League, which I wouldn't say makes him enticing, but he might be the safer pick, oddly enough, but time will tell. I'm not sure about that easy. Probably not. I think both campaigns have been quite disappointing. Before that, yes, it definitely was better in the years gone by. So 2020 to 21, all the way to 23-24. Those seasons were quite good, actually. I'm looking to do that more often and actually exceed those targets and goals. But yeah, this season has been all over the place. In Boomer to Saka / Eze or a third Arsenal defender, I mean, based on recent form, you'd probably go for the triple up in Arsenal defensively, but I talked about this in my wildcard video. I'd go for Gabriel, Raya, and Eze. Welcome, Apollo's World. Forest on fire right now and trying to fight relegation. Yeah, and Chelsea aren't particularly great, but I think Chelsea will get something, but probably a point. Better bench Cucurella. Well, I swapped him and Van Heck, basically. I'm open to changing Cucurella. I don't like him as an FPL asset. Canva or Richards? Probably Richards. I think Canva is a bit more susceptible to being benched. I think the best Palace defender is Munoz. I think Henderson would be the second best way of covering that defensive line. And then you're looking at Chris Richards. Hi Dylan, good luck this week. Thank you very much, Akil. Likewise to you. Start 3 between Hill, Strauch, Van Heck, Tavernier, Bowen. I'd start Bowen, Strauch, and Tavernier. Hey brother, who are your must-buys this week? I have 5 free transfers. Good position to be in. I just think, considering the remaining 4 game weeks of the season, I do like Bowen. I think Daniel Munoz I don't think you have to buy him now, though. With Palace players, I'd recommend buying them in 36, but Munoz would be top of the tree. But yeah, Bowen would be up there. I like Gibbs White still. And yeah, I know Easy says Aston Villa rotation. I still think they'll go fairly strong because they need to keep both options open. If they get knocked out of the Europa League, well, if they rotate against Tottenham and drop points against a struggling side, they're going to regret that. And then they need to get wins against the likes of Man City in 38. So I still expect Villa to go through to the Europa League semi-finals, but obviously they aren't in a great position right now. And they also lost their last Premier League game. So I still think they'll go fairly strong. But in certain positions like centre-back and left-back, maybe holding midfield, they could change up a little bit. But with Rodgers and Watkins, for example, well, they still need them to get plenty of minutes and to find some form. I know Watkins was showing some recently, of course, but inevitably he failed on my free hit. Best 5.4 million or cheaper midfielder to buy. I'd consider Stack. Yeah, I think based on the fixtures, facing Burnley at home, he could even start quite further forward alongside Aronson and Calvert-Lewin if Okafor isn't ready to start. So that could work fairly well, and it's a differential for you. Fernandes for Enzo or Palmer? I'd rather sell Palmer and spread the funds around a little bit. You might need that, especially if you want triple City, maybe triple Arsenal, and going for 1 or 2 Palace players minimum. Welcome, Ahmed. My team, Darlow, Cucurella, O'Reilly, Hill, Palmer, Gross, Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, Calvert-Lewin, Welbeck, Haaland, Verbruggen, Tavernier, Senesi, Goodmanson. 3 million, 1 transfer. I'd consider starting Senesi. I definitely would go for him over Cucurella, to be fair. And then it's a question of, do you start Hill or Cucurella? But I would start Senesi. I think with the rest, it's fine. You probably roll and then buy Daniel Munoz in 36 and maybe 1 more Palace player. I think moving forwards as well, you're in a similar boat to me. Cucurella to Gabriel would definitely be the play. You could even do it this week, to be fair. If you were to make 1 transfer this week, it would be that, but I'd still start Senesi. Well, Palmer had a great season under Pochettino, but he hasn't really reached the heights since. And obviously injuries have played a big part this season, but if we're being honest, even in the last campaign, he wasn't great. Cucurella to Gabriel for a -4. I'm not sure if I'd do it for a -4. I probably wouldn't. I think Fulham will score, actually. If not, start 2 of Cucurella, Biol, Senesi. I'd start the last 2 and bench Cucurella. Have Joao Pedro to replace to Thiago, DCL, okay? I'd keep Joao Pedro. Igor Thiago looks good this week against West Ham, but afterwards some pretty mixed fixtures, including Man City. I don't think I'd buy Igor Thiago at this point. I'd rather go for Jarrod Bowen, actually, despite him facing Arsenal in 36, but I do like the Newcastle and Leeds fixtures for West Ham. So, yeah, DCL is fine, especially this week, but I think in 36, I'd be quite inclined to sell Calvert-Lewin to Jarrod Bowen, or probably in terms of timing, 37 looks better. The Chelsea-Man City final will be on the 16th of May, so that's in 2 weeks' time, before the end of the season. And it has been like that for a while now, where the FA Cup final takes place before Gameweek 38. Buy Dewsbury Hall or Tavernier? Well, timing's a bit awkward here. Now, ultimately, Bournemouth will play City in 37. Everton are playing them now. In terms of fixture quality, Everton have the lead and the advantage. I'd probably buy Dewsbury Hall at this point, and I talked about this in my wildcard video. When to use bench boost, very team dependent, but ultimately either this week or next week, and use the website fpl.team to visualize how your team would look like in general. If the bench boost is the only chip left, I'd probably say 36 because you've got Palace and City doubling. You could get to maybe 5 or 6 doublers and then have some decent single game makers, which I talked about in my wildcard video this week. I even talked about a platform to bench boost in 36, so just depending on your situation, I'd probably lean towards 36, but it might be different for you. Start Enzo or Welbeck. I'm tempted to say Welbeck, to be fair. I think you'll do well against Newcastle, provided he starts, which I think he will. I'm going to go for Welbeck. Only just, though. I got exactly the same team as you with free transfers. Should I roll or get Saliba and Rice for Palmer and Senesi? I'd roll. We basically have a very similar situation. I've got 2 free transfers, you've got 3. I think rolling is best, and then it gives you more flexibility for the double. Big Sam 3152 says Sanchez, Dubravka, Senesi, Hill, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Enzo, Gross, Semenyo, Bruno, Lewis Miley, Joao Pedro, Haaland, Krupi. Any plan, Dylan? Well, you've got some good assets in there. but ultimately your goalkeepers are quite weak. And I wouldn't recommend buying Darlow necessarily, even though I like the chance of a clean sheet this week. But if you were to make a goalkeeper move, I'd buy Henderson, which sets you up well for Double Gameweek 36, or David Raya. I think that would be worthwhile, even as a goalkeeper move. Other than that, you're looking at some midfield and forward transfers. So I'm not sure what your budget is, but you surely have money in the bank. Surely. And if that's the case, I would look to upgrade Krupi Jr. I like Jeroboam from now until the end of the season. I think Joao Pedro could be sold in 36, to be fair. But yeah, defensively, maybe Van Dijk to Munoz. I would do that in 36 for sure. You could argue this week it would be an upgrade, but that could still be a coin flip in terms of Van Dijk against United away or Munoz facing Bournemouth away. But yeah, those are some ideas for you. And I would upgrade either Lewis Miley or Krupi. Having both of them, I think, looks a bit weak. Hi, Dylan. Who would you pick out of Rodon, Biol, Justin? Maybe Justin. I think he'll start, and he can play in several positions. Traditionally, he is a right back, but for Leeds United, he's mainly playing as a right centre back. And with Goodmanson injured, I think he'll play as a left wing back this week. So, or in fact, tonight. So yeah, I'd go for Justin. Would you do a -8 to sell Wirtz, Van Dijk, Solanke for Haaland captain, Dewsbury Hall, and a 3.9 million Leeds defender? Simply because Solanke's injured, you're getting Haaland, who is going to be the best captain for 37 and arguably this week. Sorry, 36 and arguably this week. Yes, I think I would take the -8 here. It's not ideal though, if I'm being completely honest, but I probably would lean towards that. Agenor says, I am struggling with the wildcard. Well, check out my wildcard video, and that would definitely help you. Raya, Henderson, O'Reilly, Justin, Van Heck, Munoz, Gabriel, Bruno, Gross, Cherky, Okafor. Well, Okafor's yellow flagged. I wouldn't go for him necessarily. If you still want that Leeds coverage, consider Stack, who should start tonight. Rodgers, Haaland, Welbeck, DCL. I like Welbeck this week, but I wouldn't have him on the wildcard. And also having Dominic Calvert-Lewin, yeah, looks good for the Burnley game, but beyond that, I don't think it's necessary. So Jeroboam would be one of my recommendations up front. Despite the Arsenal fixture in 36, I think the other games look quite good for West Ham and Jeroboam. So yeah, I would go for him. I would go for Stack over Aronson and Okafor, to be fair. And yeah, I don't really blame you. I think Rodgers and Watkins have been, well, hit or miss, especially Rodgers recently. He has been a thorn in my side too. But you got a good platform for the double as well with Henderson and Munoz. You don't necessarily need that third Palace player. I recommended, or at least I talked about Johnson, who could get more minutes than people expect for the double. And I think he'll start in 35. But ultimately, I think I would upgrade your forward line and go for Jeroboam. That would be one of the key upgrades and improvements that I would suggest. Item Lad says, hi Dylan, hope you're well. The same goes to you. Team is Verbruggen, Dubravka, Justin, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Van Heck, Hill, Bruno Fernandes, Gross, Palmer, Ampadu, Semenyo, Haaland, Joao Pedro, DCL. Free transfers, nothing in the bank. Who to bench, and any transfers you suggest. So starting, it would be Verbruggen. I would also go for O'Reilly, Gabriel, and Justin. There are definitely arguments for the other two defenders, but I'd leave them on the bench. I would also leave Ampadu on the bench and start your other midfielders and forwards. In terms of the bench order, probably Hill first, Van Heck second, and Ampadu third. In terms of transfers, I'd roll and buy some Palace players next week, with Daniel Munoz being the priority. Well, I've only got one chip left, which is the triple captain. It's going to be safe for 36, which I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, so there's nothing really else to say. I used the wildcard in 32, the bench boost in 33, which went fairly well. The free hit was a bit disappointing in 34. A few mistakes on my end and also a bit of bad luck. But yeah, only one chip remaining and there's no real need to use it now. Fun picks in the midfield and attack. And fun picks for captaincy. Well, Haaland and Fernandes are the best options for the armband this week. But beyond those two, you could go for O'Reilly. Something a little bit fun, if you will. You're going to see him highlighted later in the stream as well. Maybe Bowen against Brentford. That's a tough game to call, though, and it could go either way. Igor Thiago is actually third in my captaincy list, so that would also be another contender. I think with the midfield, Stack springs to mind, and Eze. A few differentials. In the forward line, Yeah, I think probably Bowen. And yeah, I wouldn't say Beto this week, but he could be a decent one for the remainder of the season. And he's yellow flagged at the moment. He could start. Thank you, FPL Elmer. Loving the new thumbnail, Dylan. Want to do Senesi to Gabriel, but I have to do Palmer to Saka or Semenyo to Cherki. Thoughts? I don't mind that so much, to be fair. Now, I'm seeing this debate quite a lot, actually, about Semenyo to Cherki. Should we do this? I would only do something like that if you have multiple free transfers. With one, I'd be a bit hesitant about that, and it could go either way. So recently, Cherki has outperformed him. It could easily go to Semenyo for the last couple of game weeks of the season. So I would be quite weary, but Palmer to Saka is interesting, and that's another midfield punt, by the way, which is risky. And to be fair, Palmer's not doing great either, but Bukayo Saka, I'm not even sure if he's ready to start yet. And he had a few promising signs against Newcastle, but not against Atletico. It just wasn't the game for him. And I think he might be prepped for the second leg. So it wouldn't surprise me if Madueke started yet again, but to be fair, Saka is in my predicted lineup, so that could be a shout. It really could. I think if I had to pick, assuming you've got multiple transfers at your disposal, I'd probably do Semenyo to Cherki. This is something I talked about before 33, when Cherki outperformed Semenyo quite comfortably. And I talked about going for Cherki on the wildcard, so I think that rings true, and I've been quite consistent on that front. Dewsbury Hall, Gibbs White or Sarr? At the moment, probably Gibbs White. Igor Thiago or Joao Pedro? For this week, Igor Thiago, but I wouldn't buy Thiago with Gameweek 36 and beyond in mind. Sam says, my wildcard, Raya, Henderson, Gabriel, Riley, Munoz, Strauch, Van Heck, Bruno Fernandes, Rogers, Eze, Cherki. I'd go for Stack, by the way, over Okafor. Welbeck, DCL, Haaland. Plan to do Strauch and Okafor / Stack to Gross and Lacroix, bench boost 36. Looks good to me. And by the way, I don't mind having Gross now, even against Newcastle away. I get why you want to go for Stack, but I think it's probably best just to go for Gross from the beginning then, if you want him for the remainder of the season. So, yeah, go for Gross now over Okafor and Stack. Defensively, yeah, I think Lacroix is fine. There's also Chris Richards. Good plan. I like the look of it, but just be a bit careful about booking in too many transfers. I'd only do that if you have like 5 available moves. If you have 2 or fewer, I'd be a bit hesitant about booking in 2 moves like that. Start Roafs or Kelleher? Probably Roafs. I've gone for 2-2 in the West Ham Brentford game, and I think Sunderland could keep a clean sheet. Do you think it's a big plus to do Bowen to Haaland for Gameweek 35? I think it's worth it, but who are your other forwards? Maybe they're cheaper, like Calvert-Lewin, so it's not feasible to do that, but I think Bowen's worth keeping for the rest of the season. Hi, Dylan. Good to see you there. Is owning Gibbs White a must? Not a must, but I do like him a lot, actually. And I made a mistake back in Gameweek 30, I think, when I talked about skipping him, but shortly afterwards in a Transfits video, I corrected that and I said he's worth buying in. And yeah, following on from that hat-trick, he scored and assisted against Sunderland. I think he's a good option for the rest of the season. And under Vitor Pereira, in this 4-4-2 formation, he's doing really well on the left-hand side. So yeah, I think Gibbs White, he's not really offering creativity or assists like he did in previous seasons, but he is adding more goals to his game, and that makes him a quality FPL asset right now. Triple captain 36, very simple stuff. Man City and Palace will double. Erling Haaland is the standard go-to pick. That's what I'll be doing. I think O'Reilly could be quite underrated. Then you're looking at Semenyo or Cherki, but ultimately I think Haaland would be the go-to. Bench Senesi, Hill, or Tavernier? I think from those 3, I would bench Hill. So diversify things a little bit. 1 Bournemouth defender and 1 midfielder. Start Welbeck or Senesi? Welbeck. Transfer in Gross or Van Heck? Pascal Gross. Thank you, John Paul. Happy Friday to you as well. Bogle and Cherki / Semenyo. Please pick 1 for Borro and Cunha on a -4. Well, I talked about Cherki for quite some time now. The thing is, FPL isn't always linear. We can sometimes see one player outperform the other, and then the tables turn very shortly afterwards. So I'm tempted to say Semenyo, actually, for the remainder of the season, but he has been quite poor for a while now. And I do like Cherki's price tag at 6.5 million, there or thereabouts. I think I'd go for Cherki, but very close. I think Semenyo could still outperform him in Double Gameweek 36, for example. But it's also a question of funds and what you could do with the extra money. And if you can make upgrades, then definitely go for Cherky. And then Borro or Cunha on a -4. Right. I would keep... yeah, I'd sell Cunha to Cherky in this case. Semenyo's fine, by the way, if you end up doing that. But I think Borro to Bogle, no, not really, especially for a hip. What happened to Lacroix? I'm not sure that's the case, mate. I didn't say Lacroix's injured or anything. I was just talking about different options, and I don't remember if you talked about a wild card or something. So, yeah, I might need to check Discord again and see what you're referring to, but I was mainly discussing that Munoz is the best Palace defender and asset for Double Gameweek 36, and I do like Dean Henderson to cover their defensive line, but Lacroix is fine. I just don't think I'd go from over Munoz. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. Darlow or Verbruggen? Darlow. Also Tavernier, Hill, Van Heck, Senesi, Hinshelwood or Palmer. Pick 3 to bench. I would bench Hinshelwood, Van Heck, and probably Hill. Good to see you, Baraf. It technically isn't late, mate. You've got an hour and a half to lock in your team. What are some interesting mid-punt 6.6 million or under? I mentioned Stack earlier. Pascal Gross, I still like the look of as a differential, especially for Wolves at home in 36. I think those are the main two. And after this week, I'd probably go for Dewsbury Hall. So there's a few for you. Best replacement for Palmer and Senesi. Well, apart from Gabriel, there aren't many defenders I'd sell Senesi for, to be fair. Maybe Saliba to double or triple up on Arsenal defensively. Yeah, there aren't that many. Daniel Munoz for 36, but I wouldn't buy him now. I'd probably keep Senesi for this week and then sell him to Munoz next week if that's what you're trying to do. In terms of Palmer, best replacements, there aren't many that particularly stand out, but even cheaper options like Gross could be fairly decent. I'm less keen on the Palace attack, even though Sarr scored yesterday within a minute against Shakhtar Donetsk. I would like to say Rodgers, but the form isn't really there. Very inconsistent. I think with Palmer, only sell him if you're going to use those funds to spread them around, and that's what I'll probably do in 36. That's my way of buying Gabriel back, by the way, and I might even do that for a -4 next week. I'll talk about that very soon. Gibbs White or Palmer this week, Dylan? I'm tempted to say Gibbs White. Based on recent form, I think it's no debate, but based on my captaincy list and what I've talked about this week, I'd lean towards Palmer, but not by much. So yeah, thank you, FPL Omar. I did cover your question a few minutes ago. Hopefully you got that. Ampadu or Tavernier? Tavernier. What are the positives and negatives changes by FPL this season? I like defensive contributions. I've said that all along. The 5 transfers for AFCON, not a big fan. I would have never gone for it in the first place. Basically things I said back in the day, last summer, when I was talking about these changes when they were fresh and new. Sam says, my wildcard, I cover this, mate. So thank you very much for your question. Yeah, free Chelsea players, why? Well, because I wildcarded in 32. They doubled in 33. It's a good question. I mean, they're absolutely awful right now. But with the interim, they technically haven't lost a game with him. They beat Leeds a few months ago. They drew against City with this manager. But yeah, Cucurella is an awful FPL asset. I think Joao Pedro, a bit unfortunate for him to miss both matches of 33. Palmer just hasn't really got going this season. But yeah, they will be sold. Don't worry about that. And maybe I'll have one by the end of the season, but 2 or more, very unlikely. Wildcard 35, Justin Raya or Saliba and Darlow. I'd rather go for Justin and Raya, but it's quite close. Starting 11, Raya, Gabriel, O'Reilly, Justin, Kadioglu, Cherky, Gibbs White, captain, Gross, Rodgers, Haaland, Welbeck, with Sarr, Mateta, Munoz, Darlow on the bench. I think Mateta could do quite well against Bournemouth, actually. The problem is, Strand Larson will probably start, so I get why you're benching him. I wouldn't captain Gibbs White personally. He's done really well recently, but I think he might disappoint people this week. That's not to say he's a bad FPL option or you should bench him, but I don't think I'd captain him. The rest looks solid. There's a possible argument to start Munoz over Kadioglu, but I think the rest is fairly well balanced. Hi Dylan, what do you think of this wildcard? Raya, Darlow, Strout, Gabriel, Riley, Munoz, Van Heck, Bruno, Cherky, Enzo, Tavernier, Gisbury Hall, Thiago, Welbeck, Allen. Looks good to me, but I do prefer Bowen over Thiago long term. And you could go for Justin over Strout to save a bit of money, although it's not really a big deal. I agree with the rest of your defensive line. It's what I talked about in my wildcard video. The same goes for plenty of the midfielders. I think Enzo's a shout. I do like Eze for the last couple of weeks, but I'm quite happy with what you've gone for. I think instead of Tavernier, I'd maybe opt for probably Stack or Pascal Gross. And yeah, instead of Welbeck, maybe Calvert-Lewin or... And by the way, I do like Welbeck this week, so if you are quite bullish on him, stick with, back your gut and stick with your original decision. But I just think long term, I would definitely go for Bowen up front. Replace Anderson with Gibbs White. Yeah, I think it's not a bad transfer. I mean, Anderson was very lucky not to be sent off yesterday, but yeah, Gibbs White is an upgrade right now. Do you think it's a big plus to do Bowen to Haaland for Gameweek 35? I covered your question earlier, and like I said, yes, but I do like Bowen. I would try to find another way of buying Haaland. I think Bowen might be the second or third best forward in FPL right now. Well, the start day is usually in August. Obviously, with the World Cup, it could be pushed back a little bit, but we'll talk more about that in the summer, of course. I've got Watkins too, says 5F20. Well, yeah, I don't, thankfully. He's an absolute troll, but on paper, he's got good fixtures. But Aston Villa also have the Europa League to prioritise. Yeah, John Paul, thank you. I did cover your question, though, and I was very clear on that. I would buy Cherky, although Semenyo's fine, and sell Cunha for a -4, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't do the defender transfer. Would you start Gibbs White against Chelsea? Yes, I would. Start Welbeck or Gross? Probably Welbeck. He's got a good record against Newcastle. Do you think I should keep Gordon? No, I would sell him, even to Eze, but there are plenty of other midfielders that I've mentioned in this video that could also do the job. I wouldn't go to Lefay, even though you mentioned a really good plan there to get Gabriel. Having said that, other budget midfielders you might want to consider include Stack, Dewsbury Hall, and Pascal Gross. If you can afford Gross, for example, I'd highly recommend that, and then buy Gabriel for Hill, which, to be fair, I'm quite envious of. I do want Gabriel on my team. Thank you, Pratik. Good to see you as well. Hi, Dylan. I'm thinking of starting Truffer and Hill over Gross. I would start Gross personally. Either over Hill or Tavernier. I think Truffer's a good shout. He's a differential with assist threat. Better form than Hill as well. I'd personally bench Hill in your situation. Hi, Dylan. Who can I replace Wilson with just for 1 week? Maybe Stack or Gross. Depends on your budget, really, but those two spring to mind. Enzo Fernandez is decent. Gibbs White isn't too shabby, of course, based on his recent form, but I think he could disappoint this week. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through some different screens, since I have gone through a lot of questions already. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and wow, I've been going live already for some time. We do have 1 hour, 20 minutes, of course, until the deadline. So let's, enjoy the whole ride. And we are approaching the very end of the season. We're in the month of May already, and very soon the World Cup will be upon us. I think that game will probably launch in 3 or 4 weeks' time. It usually is in late May. And once that's the case, there could be content on this channel. If you want to see that, then show support. Let's get this stream to over 100 likes on YouTube. And let's also close in on new goals like 39,000 subscribers. And actually, I will gift 10 memberships today if we do hit 39,000 subscribers. That would be a great way to start off the month. So let's close in on that. We're around 50 to 60 away. So let's make big strides towards that objective. And if not by Tuesday, for the UCL Fantasy deadline stream, which will be even busier, I'm sure we will reach that goal. So let's start off with the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, assessing the quality of these games. Man City are top with their double and 36 confirmed against Crystal Palace and Brentford at home. Arsenal, Wolves, Leeds and Crystal Palace are in the top 5. If we look near the bottom, I know I've been talking a lot about Bowen, but they are bottom, West Ham, of the FDR. Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Brentford and Bournemouth are also down there. But I'll be honest with you, apart from Arsenal, I do like the other fixtures for West Ham. I don't think Newcastle away is particularly difficult like it might have been in the past. So I think Bowen could be a quality FPL asset for the last 4 game weeks of the season. Erling Haaland, Guehi, O'Reilly, Gabriel and Semenyo complete the top 5 for predicted points. And this is with the website Fantasy Football Hub, so a Man City dominated list there. Let's go to the rest, which includes Cherki, Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Doku and Mateus Nunes. I'm not so sure about the last 2 in particular. I'd probably have a Palace player like Daniel Munoz in that sort of list. And I put a poll out on my channel. Pick 1 defender to start in Gameweek 35, and most of you have gone for Senesi, which I agree with, but for me it's between Cucurella, Van Heck and Hill to start in my Gameweek 35 team, and there is definitely a case for Hill and double Bournemouth defence, but I think I'll probably balance the defensive line a little bit more and hedge my bets, so it could be a straight shootout between Cucurella and Paul Van Heck. With price changes, we could see Calvert-Lewin, Munoz, Raya, Sarr, Eze, Lacroix, Darlow, Gross, Justin and Saliba all rise tonight. The same goes for Strauch, Aronson, Gibbs-White and Cherki. In terms of price falls, Wilson, Szoboszlai, Garner, Hall, Ekitike, Dallo, Anderson, that's Joachim Anderson by the way, Timber, Dango Ouattara, Strand Larson, Michael Keane and Mikel Merino, who could be back in a couple of weeks, and I really hope he is. He could score some crucial goals for the Gunners. I've done a stats comparison here of Sarr and Mateta. I wouldn't buy either one for 35, but this would be the most popular attacking transfer from a Palace perspective ahead of their double against Everton at home and Man City away, and their stats are quite similar. So in terms of appearances, Mateta has more, 10 goals there for the Frenchman, but Ismaila Sarr has 9 goal contributions, which is just 1 short of Mateta. In terms of shots though, yeah, the Frenchman will lead quite comfortably, even with shots on target and inside the box. The XG is quite healthy for both, but Mateta is significantly higher. Now for the XA, Sarr's quite low. It's very disappointing there. 3 big chances created is one of the only stats where Sarr leads him. The same goes for key passes, where he has almost triple the amount of Mateta, but both of them have poor numbers when it comes to creativity. But 14 big chances for the Senegalese winger and 28 for Jean-Philippe Mateta, who was covered in my Transtits video. Now for the wildcard, people have been asking me about what should I do. It's all discussed in my wildcard video from yesterday. It was another double upload for you in Fantasy Premier League, so check that out. And essentially I went for this sort of structure, and Mateta isn't really nailed on in this squad. I think he's probably the weakest link actually, but even if he starts just 1 game in the double, he could still get a big haul there with those underlying numbers. But I would definitely go for Munoz and possibly Henderson with Raya, O'Reilly, Justin, Gabriel, Cherki, Bruno Fernandes, Gross, Eze as a differential. I've also gone for Bowen, Haaland as the captain this week, Munoz, Dewsbury Hall and Van Heck. And for 36, you could bench boost with this sort of setup. So you've got Henderson, Munoz and Mateta facing Everton and Man City, whilst the City triple up would comprise of O'Reilly, who would be the vice-captain, Cherki and Erling Haaland, who I'm going to triple captain next week, by the way. You can't use 2 chips at the same time, though. This wildcard squad I talked about really optimizes the bench boost for 36. If you're not bench boosting, you could sell one of Henderson or Raya to Darlow and start him this week against Burnley at home. But for 36, you've also got Bruno Fernandes away to Sunderland, Gross and Van Heck facing Wolves at home, Eze away to West Ham, just like Gabriel Magalhaes. You've also got Bowen facing Arsenal, so the only slight concern there, you've got a clash there between Bowen and Gabriel. Dewsbury Hall away to Crystal Palace, another clash between him and Munoz with Dean Henderson. And you've got James Justin away to Tottenham. It's not a perfect bench boost, but still pretty solid in the grand scheme of things. And you're also well set for Gameweek 37 and 38. So definitely a good platform there. And I think the wild card could still work fairly well at this stage of the season. It was all talked about in that video yesterday. So FPL Challenge, I'd highly recommend playing it if you haven't done so already. This week it is called the Golden Boot. So plus 10 points are awarded for each goal. And I've gone for Erling Haaland as my captain as a result, with Darlow, Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes and a front three, which includes Bowen and Thiago, who are facing each other in that London derby. And I think Bowen might be the 2nd or 3rd best FPL forward from now until the end of the season, even though Thiago looks slightly better this week against West Ham at home. So I'm going to show you my team selection graphics fairly briefly, and that includes a review of blank Gameweek 34, which was very disappointing to say the least. Mohamed Salah is now red flagged, by the way. That's a change that happened from my team selection video yesterday, and my squad value has improved to 101.5 million, I believe, but a few disappointments in here, mainly with Xavi Simons and Salah, both of them red flagged and subbed off due to injury, and Xavi Simons will be out for probably the rest of the calendar year. Hopefully he recovers very soon. The same goes for Salah, who might have played his last game for Liverpool. My defensive line was good, but I made a massive mistake on the free hit going for Rofes over David Raya. So doubling up on the Arsenal defence was the way to go, but I don't think Arsenal were great, and ultimately they should have conceded. I think Newcastle had a few chances there with Osula, with Vissa, and they definitely gave Arsenal a bit of a scare there. I went for Bowen, who got 2 assists against Everton. Ollie Watkins always lets me down. I think you should know this by now, so I think at this point I might not even show faith in him again. Igor Thiago with a booking and a 1-pointer against Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes was my captain and also a bit underwhelming, but he got the assist. He's going to break the all-time record for the most assists in a single Premier League season, but football didn't start in 1992, by the way. Just saying, Morgan Rogers was the other blanker in my 11. And on my bench, I should have started Kinski over Robin Rofes. He got the clean sheet against Wolves, whilst Reynilo Mandava, Heaven, and Dalman all blanked. The latter didn't even play a single minute against Newcastle. So I got 49 points. Very disappointing stuff. I think they even took away a bonus from Pedro Porro in the end. And these are the prices. We saw a few changes over the last couple of days. That includes Joao Pedro going down to 7.5 million. Erling Haaland is now 14.6 in Fantasy Premier League, and I think there are a few others. O'Reilly was a significant one overnight. He went up to 5.2 million. So these are some transfer plans. Cucurella to Gabriel is only feasible if I make a downgrade elsewhere, because I've got 0.2 million in the bank. One possible transfer is Palmer to Sarr, but despite Crystal Palace doubling, if I'm being completely honest, Munoz is my priority. He's going to come in, and Gabriel at some stage as well. I talked about some transfer plans which involved buying Gabriel in 37 when Arsenal are about to play Burnley at home. The downside is, unless I take hits, I would only have one Arsenal player for that particular fixture, but I'm not in a rush to buy the Gunners in any position when they're facing Fulham at home and West Ham away. I think those are going to be very cagey affairs for Arsenal. They just need to get the job done there, of course. But Palmer to Sarr gives me the funds to make upgrades elsewhere, and I could still afford Bowen in for Joao Pedro, but Bowen actually costs 7.8 million now in Fantasy Premier League. He went up in price very recently. So with all of this in mind, this is my team selection for Gameweek 35, and this was my original plan, not to go for Cucurella, but instead have Paul Van Heck away to Newcastle, but that's something I'm quite unsure about, to be honest, in terms of picking between him, Hill, and Mark Cucurella. But Darlow, Senesi, and O'Reilly will start in Gameweek 35. The same goes for Fernandes, Gross, Palmer, and Antoine Semenyo, with a front three of Calvert-Lewin, Joao Pedro, and Erling Haaland. And on my bench, I've got Verbruggen, and also Tavernier first on my bench, Hill, and Mark Cucurella, who could still start for me. The captaincy is quite close, but Haaland does win it, or lead only just, let's say. Bruno Fernandes is the vice, and the expected points has been consistent all week. No changes from my team selection video, so make sure to check that out if you haven't done so already. And now I'm going to delve into my scoreline predictions and some other key stats for Gameweek 35. So for tonight's game, I've gone for Leeds 2, Burnley 0, Brentford 2, West Ham 2, Newcastle 1, Brighton 2, Wolves 0, Sunderland 2, Arsenal 2, Fulham 1, Bournemouth 1, Crystal Palace 1, Man United 2, Liverpool 2, and Aston Villa 3, Tottenham Hotspur 1. I've gone for a 1-1 draw between Chelsea and Nottingham Forest, and Everton 0, Man City 2. Burnley did part ways with Scott Parker yesterday, and Michael Jackson is in charge of the Clarets. Now, what I'm going to do here is highlight team weaknesses, and Everton is the highlighted one this week on the left-hand side, and I think one player who could benefit in particular on Monday night is Nico Riley, who has a very promising heat map, and his performances and output since Double Gameweek 26 have been outstanding. He has been one of Man City's best players this season by some distance. There's no denying that. He might even be number one for them, to be quite honest with you. Now, with the clean sheet odds, Arsenal are top with 48% facing Fulham at home in that London derby. Leeds United are second with 47% facing Burnley at home tonight. Man City are third with Bournemouth, Chelsea and Sunderland in the top six, whilst Burnley are bottom with only 13%. All these stats are taken by the website fantasyfootballpundit.com. But when it comes to the top 10 captains, they're from my brain, and sometimes the brain doesn't always deliver. But I've got Erling Haaland top of the charts with Bruno Fernandes second and Igor Thiago third. If you are looking for a bit of a differential captain, even though he's template himself, captaining Thiago would be differential with O'Reilly and Semenyo in the top five. You could argue Cherki should be there based on recent form, but I think Semenyo could outperform the Frenchman at least this week. Palmer, Rodgers, Watkins, Gabriel and Joao Pedro finished the top 10, but there's certainly an argument to put Gibbs White there based on recent form, Ryan Cherki and other options. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Maybe you're fancying Alexander Isak or a different player entirely, but I think beyond Haaland and Fernandes, you can't really rely on anybody at this stage. Maybe Bowen would be another one, by the way. I think he definitely has a shout to be in this top 10 list, possibly over Joao Pedro, to be fair. So that's something I'm willing to change, and there could be a few modifications to the top 10 captaincy list. Now, before I go back to your questions, and be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, let me go through the predicted lineups for all 20 Premier League teams. And yes, it shows you the upcoming fixtures, also the price changes, and the probable lineups. So for Arsenal, I've gone for Raya, Mosquera, Saliba, Gabriel, and Hincapié. Zubimendi and Rice with Saka, Eze, Trossard, and Victor Gyökeres, who scored against Atleti midweek. Aston Villa lost yesterday against Nottingham Forest in the Europa League semi-final, but I think Emi Martinez, Cash, Konsa, and probably Pau Torres and Dean will start, but that's not a guarantee. We could see Mings and Maatsen, and that's typically a popular combination on the left-hand side, with Bogard and Tielemans in central midfield, McGinn, Barkley, Rodgers, and Ollie Watkins to face Tottenham. Moving on to Bournemouth, Petrovic, Jimenez, Hill, Senesi, Troffer, Scott, Adams, Rayan, Krupi Jr., Tavernier, and Ivanilson to face Crystal Palace. With Brentford, Kelleher, Coyote, Vandenberg, who went down in price recently, Collins, Lewis Potter, Yarmoliuk, Jensen, Dango and Schala both went down as well this week, with Damsgaard and Igor Thiago, who could prove to be a good captaincy choice. Next up is Brighton, arguably the most informed team in the country, with Verbruggen, Vifa, Van Heck, Dunk, and Kadioglu, Ayari and Pascal Gross, who is currently FPL Gold, Minter and Matoma on the wings, and Hinshelwood behind Danny Welbeck, who has a decent record against Newcastle. Next up is Burnley, who could go to a back three here with Dubravka, Humphreys, Ekdal and Esteve, Ward-Prowse and Laurent, with Walker, Hartman, Edwards, Anthony and Fleming to face Leeds away. We're now on to Chelsea with Sanchez, Gusto, Chalobah, Hato, Cucurella, Andre Santos, Caicedo, Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, Neto, and Joao Pedro. Plenty of underperformers there for the Blues. And Crystal Palace will double in 36 against Everton at home and Man City away, with Henderson, Richards, Lacroix, Canvert likely starting this week against Bournemouth. Lerma and Hughes in central midfield. Munoz is the best Crystal Palace asset by some distance, with Mitchell, Johnson, Yeremi Pino, and Strand Larsen completing the rest of the 11. Everton are up next with Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkowski, Keane, Mikalenko, Idrissa Gana Gay and Garner, McNeil, Dewsbury Hall, Ndai, and Beto leading the line if he's ready to start. Fulham will likely go for this lineup tomorrow against Arsenal. Leno, Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Robinson, Lukic, Sandberg, Wilson, Smith-Rowe, Chukwueze and Raul Jimenez. A few players are missing here. That includes Iwobi and Ryan Sessegnon. Leeds United have been quite consistent, but Okafor is doubtful, and we could see Stack return to the starting 11 with Darlow, Rodon, Biol, Strauch, Ampadu, Tanaka, Bogle, Justin, Aronson, and Calvert-Lewin to complete the rest of the starting 11 tonight. Liverpool, the Premier League champions, still have Woodman, Jones, Konate, Van Dijk, and probably Robertson over Kirkes, with McAllister and Szoboszlai in central midfield, Frimpong to replace the injured Salah, Wirtz, Gakpo, and Alexander Isak to face Man United. The other Manchester club is City, with Donnarumma, Mateus Nunes, Kusanov, Mark Guehi, Ait Nuri, Bernardo Silva, O'Reilly, Semenyo, Cherki, Doku, and Haaland. Rodri is out for the next couple of weeks, which could be a massive blow there for the citizens. And for Manchester United, Cunha is back in training, but there's no guarantee he starts against Liverpool. So we could see Ahmad on the left and Mbouma on the right again. Seska will definitely lead the line, and Lamens will be the goalkeeper, with Dalot, Heaven, Maguire, Shaw, Casemiro, and Mainu likely starting as well. Fernandes will start every game for United, of course. And with Newcastle, I don't think Lewis Hall is yellow flag, by the way, so that should be fine. Don't worry about that one. But I think Newcastle could start Voltemada. He played very well against Arsenal, or at least had some moments there of real quality. So I think it's a very strange situation what's happening with the German, with Osler starting all the time right now. Anthony Gordon will probably miss this game against Brighton, but we'll see if he can push for a start. Nick Pope, Miley, Chow, Botman, Hall, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Ramsey, Elanga, Barnes, and Voltemada is my predicted lineup against Brighton. And with Nottingham Forest, we could see several changes. Even at right back, we could see Abbott start over Aina. I've gone for Sells, Milenkovic, and Morato. So Murillo is a doubt here for the game against Chelsea, with Williams, Hutchinson, Dominguez, Anderson, Gibbs-White, Chris Wood, who scored a penalty against Aston Villa yesterday, and Igor Jesus. We have a few teams left, including Sunderland, who lost 5-0 against Forest last Friday, with Robin Roves, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, and Renildo Mandava, Siddiqui, Xhaka, Rig, Diarra, Lefay, and Brobby to face Wolves away. Tottenham Hotspur have a few injury problems, of course, and Xavi Simons is the biggest concern of the lot. He's out for the rest of the season and probably for the rest of the calendar year. So Kinski, Bedroborro, Danso, Van der Ven, Spence, Bentancur, Basuma, Colomwani, Gallagher, Tell, and Richarlison will likely start. Solanke will not feature. And for West Ham, it's pretty much a stable 11 with Hermanson, Walker-Peters, Mavropanos, Disasi, Diouf, Soucek, Fernandez, Bowen, Pablo, Somerville, and Dati Castellanos. The last team is Wolves, who are bottom of the Premier League table. Jose Sarr is out, so Bentley will deputise in goal, with Doherty, Santiago Bueno, and Totti Gomez in central defence, with Pedro Lima and Hugo Bueno as the wing-backs, Andre, Joao Gomez in midfield, with Bellegarde, Mane, and Armstrong as the front three. So let's now go back to my FPL squad, and I'll try to lock things in as soon as possible, and I will answer your questions as well. Who to bench? Bogle, Senesi, Cucurella, O'Reilly, and Hill. Yeah, tough one this week. I'm in a similar boat, but O'Reilly would definitely not be benched. He has to start for me. I would start O'Reilly, Senesi, and probably Bogle if you're only going for free. I don't get why Newcastle are looking at Jackson with Voltemada and Vissa and all these attacking mids. Yeah, I agree. Voltemada is a good player. Even though he's not a traditional number 9, he's got something about him. And if you do buy a proper centre-forward, you'd still want to start Voltemada and change the formation. But Newcastle have been a bit stale all season, and they haven't really kicked on from that brilliant campaign they had last year where they finished in the top 4. They won the Carabao Cup, and obviously they lost Alexander Isak. And Voltemada had a great start, by the way, to his Premier League career. But since November, it's all changed. Yeah, good to see you, Twister Parky, as always. Burnley today will beat... What? Oh, yeah, beat it. Yeah, okay, Michael Jackson. For a second, I was like, what? Are you crazy? But yeah, I got the reference. I'm not going to sing it, by the way. Enzo or Rodgers? Probably Rodgers, but I don't have much confidence. Okafor is doubtful. I don't think he'll start. Who to bench between Palmer, Gross, Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, Calvert-Lewin, Welbeck, Haaland, Tavernier? Come on, Haaland shouldn't be in this debate. This then goes for Fernandes. Probably Tavernier. Yep, predicted lineups. Just done, Jeremy. Hi, Dylan. My squad is Darlow, Verbruggen, Senesi, O'Reilly, Hill, Van Heck, Strauch, Bruno Fernandes, Palmer, Enzo, Tavernier, Semenyo, Haaland, Joao Pedro, Welbeck. How can I fit Gibbs-White here? Thank you. Yeah, good question. I think Tavernier would be the one to make way, similar to another situation I just covered. So, yeah, I dropped Tavernier in this case if you really want to start Gibbs-White. I have Rodgers. Should I go with Watkins as well, or get Welbeck or any other forward instead? I like Welbeck this week, and obviously it's Wolves at home next up, so I get the appeal, but beyond that, I don't think I'd be in a rush to buy Welbeck, but I get it. I prefer Bowen if you are to buy a forward. I know he has a good record against Arsenal and people would still be put off that, but Brentford away, Newcastle away and Leeds at home, I think Bowen could do really well in those games, particularly Gameweek 38. So yeah, I would recommend Bowen more than any other forward. Also worth punning on Wirtz or Isak? I'd say no. Not for me. I mean, if Isak plays well against United, then sure, but the fixtures aren't great for Liverpool, and I just don't think Isak's minutes will be particularly appealing or secure. So once again, Bowen, bit boring, I guess. I know you want to go for differentials, and to be fair, Bowen isn't template, but yeah, he would be the pick of the bunch for me. Start Sanchez or Verbruggen. That's not an easy one, but probably Verbruggen, I think. Also, is it worth tripling up on Palace defence? I think 2 is fine. So go for Munoz and Henderson, or maybe Lacroix. Triple up is probably a bit too much. Some FPL creators hitting wildcard this game week. Is this too late or the plan all along? I can't speak for them, to be fair. I don't know what they've done recently, so I can't really speak for them. But sure, in many cases, they would have planned this. It's just, yeah, I can't really tell you their thought process. You've got to watch those videos. Hey, Dylan, did you do the predicted lineups? Yeah, sorry, just covered that. That was a different message anyway. Starting 11 says Ryan, Raya, Gabriel, Riley, Justin, Kadioglu, Cherky, Gibbs White, Captain, Gross, Rogers, Hallen, Welbeck. I did cover this one earlier, and I offered my thoughts already. Thoughts on Watkins on wildcard? Looks good for the next 2. I haven't changed my mind about that, but Watkins is a very funny character when it comes to Fantasy Premier League. At least for me personally, I can't rely on him. Hey Dylan, want to laugh at my front line? Well, Thiago's pretty good. The other 2, yeah, fair enough. I think Daddy Castellanos could be quite decent for the next couple of weeks, but Bowen is obviously the preference, and there is an Erling Haaland-shaped hole in your forward line. All in with Captain Gyökeres. Well, I hope he does really well, for your sake, for Arsenal's, and for my well-being, but all the best to you. Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. Yeah, World Cup Fantasy will obviously be on FIFA's website. Yeah, just like the Club World Cup last summer, the World Cup a few years ago, there were quite a few bugs in the World Cup Fantasy game a few years ago, and obviously with the Matchday 1 deadline in the Club World Cup in June last year, which is almost a year ago. It's crazy how time flies. Start Tavernier or Ampadu? Tavernier. Ampadu has DEFCONs every week. That's fair enough. I still prefer Stack, but yeah, that could be a decent shout. Yeah, but is he going to make as many defensive actions against Burnley? That's another way of framing it. I think Tavernier is just more likely to score or assist, but I get your point. Gabriel says, hi mate, have 2 free transfers and this team. What would you do? Darlow, Henderson, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Richards, Diouf, Alderete, Semenyo, Sarr, Bruno, Cunha, Anderson, Thiago, Bowen, Haaland. I'd probably roll. And by the way, you've got a very good front three. You could arguably sell Thiago in 36, but no need to do it right now. So yeah, looks really good. I think the plan for you would be to buy Munoz. Even though you've got Richards and Henderson already, the problem is, who do you sell? Because I certainly wouldn't offload Gabriel or O'Reilly. So maybe Diouf or Alderete if you can afford it. I think Cunha might be one to sell, to be fair, but you've got Anderson. It's not too shabby. But if you were to make a move this week, it's probably Cunha out. I'm not sure if he even starts, to be fair. And so go Tavernier, more attacking and on fouls corners. That's my current preference for the people who asked about that. Villa need to do their mission today, relegate Tottenham. Yeah, but as long as Villa still have something to play for in 38 against City, I mean, that's what I want, just from a selfish perspective. But yeah, it's not looking good for Tottenham, but Aston Villa aren't in great form either. Start Scott or Tavernier? I'd say Tavernier. Alexander says, my team is Petrovic, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Hill, Struijk, Semenyo, Palmer, Okafor, Haaland, Thiago, Vanderson, Wilson, Minter, Van Heck, rolling this week and doing Wilson, Van Dijk, Tassar, Gehi, and triple captain next week and wildcard last. I like the look of that. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but I do like Munoz for the double game week. I would really recommend him if possible, but not at the expense of Gabriel. So instead of buying Gehi, I mean, I'd personally buy O'Reilly instead of Gehi, and yeah, I would buy Munoz if possible. Kerwin says, hey bro, need some help, have 3 chips left. Oof, okay. This is a bit awkward, but I think what I'd probably do is wildcard now, triple captain in 36 and bench boost in 37. that is my recommendation to you. Best wildcard team, I covered it earlier when I went on FPL.team, and it's in my wildcard podcast from yesterday, so check that out. Yeah, it would have double Palace, possibly even triple, but Mateta is certainly a debatable pick. I think Spurs lose again. Unfortunate for their fans. Well, I've gone for 3-1 Villa, but I'm not sure where that's coming from because, yeah, Aston Villa have been a bit shaky recently. Thank you to Stupaki. As he says, like the stream, it costs nothing, and I've answered a lot of questions already. Some of them even multiple times, by the way. Start Reinildo, Munoz, Hill, or Dango? Probably Hill. It's between him or Munoz. I have gone for 1-1 in that game, to be fair. And from that perspective, you probably lean towards Munoz, but I'm in two minds about that scoreline. It's either 1-0 Bournemouth or 1-1. Not really keen on Dango. But then again, it is West Ham at home, which isn't terrible. Raya or Darlow? I'd still go for Raya. Senesi or Truffer? Senesi. Start one of Munoz, Reinildo, Dango, Hill. Yeah, covered. Munoz or Kadioglu, taking into consideration Munoz played 90 minutes on Thursday game and Brighton Newcastle's form. I'd still go for Munoz here, but yeah, Brighton could keep a clean sheet. If you said Van Heck because of DEFCON, I would probably say Van Heck in that situation. But yeah, it does seem like you're leaning towards Kadioglu, so you've got to back your gut on that one, but I don't think a clean sheet will be kept by either team. Yeah, Salah's injured, he's red flagged, which was highlighted earlier. I was thinking of skipping the game to watch Michael Jackson tonight. Yeah, Easy already made a little joke about that. Captain this game week, Haaland or Bruno? I'm going for Haaland at the moment. Arsenal differential, Eze. Sell Sanchez or Dubravka to buy Darlow or stay? To be honest, the only goalkeepers I'd buy right now are Raya and Henderson. Darlow isn't too far away, but it's mainly just for this week against Burnley. So if you were to do this, probably for Sanchez. Gives you some money as well. Which of Semenyo, Palmer, Tavernier should I sell for Dewsbury Hall? If Semenyo, I can sell him for O'Reilly and get a City triple up. I do like O'Reilly, but who are your other City players? I mean, Haaland's almost inevitably going to be one of them, but who's the third? Is it Matheus Nunes, Mark Guehi? I mean, that'd be a different way of covering City in this double game coming up, but yeah, I don't think I'd sell Semenyo, so probably sell Palmer, but not this week. I would do that in 36, and that gives you funds to buy Munoz, for example, Gabriel, and maybe you could do a City switch defensively and buy O'Reilly. It depends on how many transfers you have available to you. Yeah, nice one to Stupaki. 20-point gap is decent, but even at this stage of the season, anything can happen. You've got to get the captaincy spots on for the remaining 2 match days of the season. Thiago or Welbeck? For this week, Thiago, but I do like Welbeck this week. On wildcards, still have bench boost. Yeah. I'd bench boost in 36. Start Strauch or Senesi? Probably Strauch. Already have Darlow in goal. You could hedge your bets, to be fair. Leeds are second in the clean sheet odds, but Bournemouth are fourth. So yeah, difficult one. Senesi's better for DEFCON, for goals, assists, virtually everything really, except maybe clean sheet potential this week. But because you've got Darlow in goal already, I'd probably change my answer to Senesi and hedge the bets a little bit because I'm not that confident of a Leeds clean sheet. I've gone for 2-0, but yeah, I wouldn't really count on it. Best 1 week team for Gameweek 35. I think up front, Thiago, Haaland, and one of Bowen or Welbeck. In the midfield, I'd go for possibly Stack, Eze. I mean, Bruno Fernandes gets into it by default. I wouldn't mind Pascal Gross, by the way, but yeah, one of Cherki or Semenyo. Defensively, O'Reilly, Gabriel. I'd go for Raya in goal and possibly a Leeds defender. Yeah, I'd go for that sort of thing. Thanks, Haribo, for the super chat. I need a differential captain. Was thinking Bogle or DCL. I have 30 plus points to make up. Any better ideas? Probably Calvert-Lewin from the two, but I get the defender one because they're second for the clean sheet odds, only just behind Arsenal. And if Bogle can combine that with a goal or assist, you're looking at a mega haul. But I think I'd still go for Calvert-Lewin, oddly enough. And in terms of other differential captains, I think Thiago, Bowen, Welbeck. Yeah, those are some decent options for you. And I'll probably will adjust my captaincy list. I think I will. Thanks, by the way, Punjabi, for moderating the chat. I appreciate it. Would you play Munoz or Hill? Probably Munoz, Tavernier, Enzo, Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro. Okay, what I'm going to do is adjust my captaincy list very briefly. We've got, I mean, time flies. We've literally just got 40 minutes left, or 50 minutes left for the deadline. So be sure to lock in when possible. Okay, so I'm going to make a few changes here. To be fair, yeah, I might get rid of Gabriel from the top 10 list. Rodgers is arguably too high, but he does have a decent record against Tottenham. I'll keep him there, I guess. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to replace Watkins. He's another one who could be considered for the free hit, by the way, but let's go for this. Welbeck will be in the top 10. Surprise, surprise. Let's go for Bowen. I think Bowen would be above Rodgers. So a few changes here. Gabriel? Not sure about Gabriel, to be fair. Might even put Palmer 10th. All right, let's put that. Yeah. Okay. Be sure to like, by the way, if you haven't done so already. I have gone through a lot of questions and different stats. That includes predicted lineups as well, expected points, all that good stuff. Just going to have these ready for you and maybe even correct something. I think maybe the Brennan Johnson price from earlier. So bear with me for a second. And let me know if you think these changes I'm making to the top 10 captaincy list are even worth it. Do you think maybe I'm overthinking it? Would you go for something a little bit different? But yeah, apart from Fernandes and Erling Haaland, I don't think there are many reliable options in the game right now. So I'm going to put Welbeck there. Rodgers. Yeah, I'm going to do that then. I'm actually going to put Semenyo out of the top 5. Which I could regret. So after this, I'm going to go through the graphics and yeah, show them one more time, sort of briefly, and then do some quick fire questions and go through them that way. Okay, so this one is almost done. The Gabriel one, I'm just not particularly sold on. I'll probably put Watkins in there. Yeah, put Watkins. Yeah, I think Fulham could score here. I mean, tough one. All right, I'm going to get rid of the Chelsea players. Let's put Gabriel in 10th. Okay, so that should be sorted soon. And yeah, keep your questions coming. I will be going through them very shortly. And I'm going to put a poll out on my channel, or at least in this live chat, to get your thoughts on it. This will be my biggest decision to make this week. I think the plan is to roll, so let's put that out now. So let's go for Van Hecke, Cucurella, and Hill. So that's what it comes down to. Yeah, I was kind of worried about that as well, Nuclear Atoms, because I've kind of built a consistent brand. Yeah, and people were like, oh, who is this? But yeah, I've been sort of experimenting recently with UCL Fantasy 2, doing a few different methods and comparing them to my original thumbnails. But yeah, a lot of good reception to all the thumbnails, so I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I'm always trying to evolve. Even last year, of course, with all the graphics that you see now, yeah, they were implemented around this stage, you know, March to April, going into May as well. And it's always about improving the content. I would only go differential captain if it would help me win my mini leagues. I'm too far adrift. Makes sense, and I've been burned sometimes by going different with the captaincy and with certain picks, and it is what it is. Like, even with the Raya one last week, I made a mistake, but it was a massive swing for him to get 10 points and for Revs to get 0. Would you sell Palmer to Saka or Rodgers? I think I'd rather go for Rodgers, even though he doesn't fill me with confidence. Or would you sell Van Dijk to Saliba? To be fair, I'd sell Van Dijk to Munoz in 36. So do Palmer to Rodgers. To be fair, with the Rodgers move, I'd only do that if you are going to use those funds elsewhere. I know Villa have good fixtures over the next 2, but yeah, you can't really rely on Villa and Rodgers at the moment. But definitely Van Dijk to Munoz in 36 is something I'd recommend to you. And from the first question, I prefer Rodgers. Hi Dylan, what do you think? Start 4 hours Semenyo, Okafor, Rodgers, Van Hecke and Senesi? I don't think Okafor will start, to be honest, but yeah, it could be worth having in your lineup and have Van Hecke first on your bench. I'd definitely start Semenyo, Rodgers and Senesi, just to be quite clear with you. So, despite it meaning a double up in the Bournemouth defence, 40% of you have gone for Hill in this poll. But Van Hecke and Cucurella have 30% of the votes as well, so I'll let that simmer a little bit, and we'll see what you lot think in the end. So I'm also going to adjust one of the prices, I think, and predicted lineups if necessary. I'll have a look at that and then show you all the stats that you need for Gameweek 35 and beyond. Let's see. Oh no, I think the price was correct anyway, so that's all good. All right, so that should be all done. Let's go now to the FDR one more time. So the bottom 5 include West Ham, Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Brentford, and Bournemouth. And those near the top include Man City, Arsenal, Wolves, Leeds, and Crystal Palace. Obviously, Man City and Crystal Palace will double in 36, which I've covered for quite some time now. And with predicted points until the end of the season, Haaland is top of the charts with Guehi, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Semenyo, and Cherki. So 5 City players in the top 6. Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Doku, and Matheus Nunes are all in the top 10. So this was a poll I put out, which is very similar to the one that is currently in the live chat. Make sure to vote as well. Senesi has 43% of the votes. He will start for me alongside O'Reilly, but it's between Cucurella, Van Hecke, and Hill for that third defender spot, and Hill is currently winning both of those polls. With projected price changes according to the website livefpl.net, Calvert-Lewin, Munoz, Eze, Raya, Sarr, Lacroix, Darlow, Gross, Saliba, and Justin could all rise tonight. The same goes for Strauch, Gibbs-White, Aronson, and Ray and Cherky. In terms of price falls, Wilson, Szoboszlai, Garner, Hall, Anderson, Ekitike, Dallo, Dangle Ouattara, Timber, Keane, all could go down. The same goes for Strand Larsen, Van Dijk, and Mikel Merino. I compared the stats of two popular Palace assets for 36. I wouldn't necessarily buy them now. And for example, I think Strand Larsen and Johnson could start over these two when it comes to the game against Bournemouth. So that's why a lot of people might be favouring the Bournemouth assets like Hill and Senesi at the moment, which is completely fair enough. But I think Mateta might be the preference for me if I were wildcarding. And obviously I played that chip already in 32. I've only got the triple captaincy chip left, which will be deployed in 36 on Erling Haaland. Now, when it comes to the best wildcard squad, you could build this sort of platform and then bench boost in 36. And for this week, it would look like this. Raya, Gabriel and Eze against Fulham at home. Justin facing Burnley. O'Reilly, Cherky and Semenyo up against Everton away. Bruno Fernandes facing Liverpool at home. Gross away to Newcastle. Mateta away to Bournemouth, which isn't particularly great. And Bowen away to Brentford. But what you could do here as well is even go for Welbeck. But if you do that, I would probably get rid of Gross and have something a little bit different. That could be Enzo Fernandez in the midfield, Morgan Rogers if you have enough funds, Ismail Sarr. It really depends on how you want to approach the remainder of the season. Even Stack could be quite good for the Burnley fixture, but I'll be honest with you, I think I'd probably stick with this, even though I don't think Mateta starts in 36. In 35. I think you will get one start in the double, but maybe not both of them that you need. So for FPL Challenge, I'll talk about this briefly as well once the deadline is gone. But I've gone for Darlow, Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes, Haaland captain, Thiago and Bowen. This week it is called the Golden Boot. So you get plus 10 points for each goal. So these are my scoreline predictions, which could also help answer some of your questions in turn when it comes to which defender to start and which game do you think will have plenty of goals in. I've gone for Leeds 2, Burnley 0. A 2-2 draw between Brentford and West Ham. I think Brighton will beat Newcastle 2-1, with Wolves 0, Sunderland 2, Arsenal 2, Fulham 1, Bournemouth 1, Crystal Palace 1, another 2-2 draw, this time between Man United and Liverpool, and Aston Villa 3, Tottenham 1, Chelsea 1, Nottingham Forest 1, and Everton 0, Man City 2. Hopefully, I'm wrong about the last one, and Everton get something. In terms of team weakness, I am focusing on the Toffees. Up the Toffees! And O'Reilly is going to be the featured player, which obviously I went through earlier today. I think on the left-hand side, he could definitely target that potential. And to be fair, there is the possibility that Ait-Nouri plays on the left and O'Reilly is in a more central area this week, which I talked about in the predicted lineup section. Arsenal, Leeds, Man City, Bournemouth, Chelsea and Sunderland are in the top 6 for the clean sheet odds, whilst Burnley are bottom with 13% against Leeds away. So the top 10 captains, I've made several modifications, but Haaland remains top with Bruno Fernandes, Thiago, O'Reilly and Bowen in the top 5. I've gone for Semenyo in 6th, Rogers, Welbeck, Watkins and Gabriel Magalhaes. So I have removed Joao Pedro and Palmer from the top 10 entirely. Let me know if you prefer this list in the comments section. A lot of love for Welbeck at the moment, and I think he could deliver against Newcastle. So I think the only thing to really change with the lineups is the fact that Lewis Hall is not yellow flagged. Everything else should be up to date and all ready to go. And will Dan Burns start again? And I've gone for a bit of a bold call in that Newcastle lineup for Voltemada to actually start a game of football, even up front. But let's wait and see if that's the case. So I'm going to show you those lineups in just a minute and then go back to your questions for the remainder of the stream. And also lock in my squad because, yeah, that defensive line is a little bit of a problem for this week. Good squad depth, which obviously came about from the wildcard in 32 and bench boosting in 33. But, yeah, it does also lead to some benching dilemmas now. So let's now go to the predicted lineups. I'm not going to read out all the names because I've already done that earlier in this stream. So Arsenal are first up here. So Raya, Mosquera, Saliba, Gabriel, Hincapié. I think the main concerns here would be at left wing and attacking midfield. Odegaard was subbed off due to discomfort against Atletico Madrid. Havertz will not be available, but Arteta hopes that he's going to be fit for the Atletico Madrid game. But Jurrien Timber remains out, and he has missed so many games of football recently, and he is sorely missed. I think Bukayo Saka will start on the right-hand side. For Aston Villa, the main concerns, just like in the last couple of videos, are in the central defence and left-back. So we could see Maatsen and maybe Konsa, and maybe Mings start on the left-hand side. I think Bogard will be in the midfield with Tielemans, and the rest should be fairly straightforward against Tottenham. I don't expect much rotation there. The same definitely goes for Bournemouth, but they do typically make a few tweaks to their attack. But I think Tavernier, Kruppi Jr., Rayan and Evanilson will be the front four with Adams alongside Scott. With Brentford, they've got a very stable 11 at the moment. Thiago remains the best Brentford asset. Vandenberg went down in price fairly recently. So did Schade and Dango-Tara, by the way. With Brighton, I think Welbeck could be the best asset against Newcastle away, but Gross is pure quality at the moment, and Van Heck has returned in 5 consecutive games. Gomez is injured, or he's a doubt at the moment, so I think Minter and Mitoma will start. With Burnley, well, I think they'll go for a back three with Fleming up front, and we could see a few changes in the midfield in particular, but I've gone for Laurent and Ward-Prowse there. Moving on to Chelsea, I think they'll stick with this sort of settled 11, but there's always going to be a surprise or two with the Blues, but Palmer, Enzo, João Pedro should all start together. Next up is Crystal Palace, and they could rotate quite heavily with Johnson and Strand Larsen alongside Yeremi Pino in that front three, but I do expect their defensive line to be relatively stable until the end of the season. Moving on to Everton, Beto is yellow flag, but I think he'll start if he is ready to do so. Otherwise, Cheno Barry will take his place. The rest is very consolidated right now. With Fulham, Sessegnon and Iwobi are injured against Arsenal, but I think Robinson and Chukwueze will take their places with Smith Rowe as the attacking midfielder and Raul Jimenez leading the front line. Moving on to Leeds, I don't think Okafor will start, and we could see Stack alongside Aronson and Calvert-Lewin with Ampadu and Tanaka in central midfield, and Goodmanson is unavailable, so Justin should play as a left wing-back with Rodon, Biol and Strauch in that defence, with Bogle as the other player in the outfield positions. With Liverpool, Salah's injured, so Frimpong should replace him, and Gravenberch could return to the starting 11 here, but I've gone for McAllister and Szoboszlai with Jones as the right back. Another possibility, of course, is for the Hungarian to be deployed in defence, and then you see McAllister and Gravenberch in central midfield. I've also gone for Robertson, by the way. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. With Man City, we could see Nuri left back and O'Reilly as a midfielder alongside Bernardo Silva, with Rodri out for the next couple of weeks. We now have Manchester United with Cunha back in training. He could return to the lineup, but I think he'll be on the bench as a super sub against Liverpool, and that would mean Amad Diallo, Mbeumo and Sesko as the front three. With Newcastle United, Lewis Hall should start at left back, but never say never with Eddie Howe and Dan Burn. I've gone for Voltemada to start, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. It could be Osula one more time, but I think Voltemada did more than enough to earn a start with his performance against Arsenal off the bench. We now have Nottingham Forest, who could make several changes, and a lot of them forced due to injury. Aina could be replaced by Abbott, for example, and we could also see Murillo displaced by Morato. Jer Cunha is also a doubt here, and Dominguez would replace the doubtful Sangare in the midfield. And it's a different formation now for Nottingham Forest under Vitor Pereira, who have that 1-0 lead over Aston Villa in the Europa League semi-finals. With Sunderland, I think they'll go for one change, and that includes Renildo Mandava, who came on at half-time in that 5-0 loss against Nottingham Forest. Mukiele will be the right back, with Ballard and Alderete in central defence. With Tottenham Hotspur, Xavi Simons is out for the rest of the year, it looks like, so Tell should replace him on the left-hand side, and the rest is what you would expect. Solanke is unavailable, so Richarlison should lead the line for the Lily Whites. With West Ham United, very standard stuff. Bowen is the best asset they have to offer by some distance, and I think he'll play there with Dadi Castellanos up front and Somerville on the left, and Mavropanos is also proven to be a decent FPL choice. And with Wolves, Bentley will replace the injured Jose Sarr, and the rest isn't really FPL worthy. In fact, none of it is, in my opinion. So let's now go back to my team and your questions. I'm sure there are plenty brewing in the background, but this poll is all over the place. It's very close at the moment between Hill and Van Heck at around 40% each. So let's see who ends up winning that poll. But I was talking about it actually earlier in my team selection video. The plan originally was to go for Van Heck. Good to see you, YLB. Saludos también. Darlow or Raya? I would start David Raya. There's no update on Okafor necessarily. Nothing new, I believe. I mean, I'll get the quote that was said a few days ago, but yeah, this was a few days back. No, Okafor got a hit against the calf. There's a question mark behind his availability, so it's down to a late fitness test, but I don't think he'll start. Gay or Chow in defense? Gay. Is that Szoboszlai or Dewsbury Hall in midfield? Probably Szoboszlai. Start with Bruggen and Chow or Mukiele and Kelleher. Probably Mukiele and Kelleher. Play Tavernier or Welbeck. Welbeck, which I mentioned earlier as well. Hi Dylan, start Hill or Tavernier? Tavernier. I'm on wildcard this week. Triple captain 36, bench boost 37. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I said this to someone else earlier. Now, it does depend on how you set the wildcard up, but I think that is the best play. Triple captain Haaland in 36. I have to start one of Van Heck, Munoz or Canvert. I'd probably start Van Heck. Welcome, Diego. Good to see you. Yeah, I think Biol will start. I literally just covered it in my predicted lineup section. Best Arsenal defender other than Gabriel and Raya? Probably Saliba. The thing is with Hincapié, Calafiori is back, and we could see rotation there a little bit because Arsenal are also going fully at it in the Champions League, and if they do reach the final, then yeah, I would expect Calafiori to get a start or two. Is Watkins and Stack better than Rodgers and DCL? As a duo, it's very close. I don't think much separates them, but I probably would say yes. Palmer to Bruno Fernandes? Yeah, Bruno Fernandes is comfortably ahead. Start Senesi or Van Dijk? Senesi. Transferring Gibbs White or Rodgers? Based on recent form, I think Gibbs White wins hands down, but in terms of fixtures, Villa do look much more appealing for the next two. Then it's Liverpool and Man City, but I think I'd buy Gibbs White to be fair. Play two, Welbeck, Gross, Bowen, Senesi, Aronson. I'd play Welbeck and Bowen. Start Van Dijk or Anderson from Nottingham Forest? Anderson. Should I captain Calvert-Lewin? I wouldn't do that necessarily, but play the game the way you want to. Sarr, Welbeck, Van Heck, Tavernier, play only one, Welbeck. Best midfield options, 8 million or under to end the season. I mentioned quite a few in my wildcard video, and also today when I showed the wildcard team again. Eze would be one of them. I think Pascal Gross, Stack, they'd be up there. Yeah, I think Dewsbury Hall's pretty decent after 35. I like him. Cherky would probably be the standout overall. Hi Dylan, start two of Semenyo, Rodgers and Okafor. I don't think Okafor will start, so yeah, by default I'd start the other two. I'm guessing in this question you're saying, well, if Okafor does start, who would you start from those three? Probably still the same answer. Hi Dylan, I really want to follow your advice and start Welbeck, but I already have Palmer, Enzo, Tavernier, Bruno Fernandes, Semenyo, Haaland, Joao Pedro. What do I do? I said this earlier, I'd bench Tavernier, but it's up to you what you do with that. Double up on Arsenal defence this week. I think Fulham will score, but it's not a bad idea to have Arsenal defensive coverage. Who would you start out of Van Heck, Munoz and Canvert? As I mentioned literally just a few minutes ago and I highlighted your message, I would start Van Heck. Thank you very much. Hill or Strauch in defence? Strauch. What to do with Palmer? I'd sell him in 36. I wouldn't be in a rush to do it right now though, but my plan is to sell him in the double. Bruno, Semenyo, Gross, Tavernier, 0.1 in the bank. Yeah, probably sell in 36. Play free, Gross, Bowen, Senesi, Welbeck or Bowen. Yeah, you said Bowen twice there, by the way, but I would start Bowen, Welbeck and Pascal Gross. I'd bench Senesi. Alfred says, hey Dylan, my wildcard is active. Planning to bring in Darlow and Strauch. For third Leeds player by Okafor DCL. Okafor's doubtful, so by default I'd just lean towards DCL. Apart from Darlow and their defenders like Justin, I'd probably recommend Stack, who I think will start. Keep Palmer instead of Bruno for differential. Not for me. I think Bruno's comfortably better. Who keeps a clean sheet? Well, neither. But if I had to pick one, I think Brighton win the game. I think they're more likely to do that. Shall I get rid of Anthony Gordon for Anderson, Saka, Eze? I would sell him, yes. Saka's not a bad shout, but my preference is Eze right now. Hi, Dylan. Start Enzo or Tavernier for Hill or Van Heck? Probably Enzo. Not much in it. Marek puts a squad. Who to take first from the first squad? I'd start Raya, Gabriel, O'Reilly, and Strauch. I'd also start Semenyo, Palmer, Gross, and yeah, I'd probably go for Enzo, even though you've got Palmer starting already. And I'd start your entire front three. But yeah, triple Chelsea attack does seem a bit excessive. And to be fair, I've got triple Chelsea in my lineup at the moment, but I think I'm going to bench Cucurella soon. Is DCL a good captaincy option? He's decent, but I just don't trust him enough to do that. Thank you. I wish you the best as well. Bench 1, Welbeck or Tavernier? I'd bench Tavernier. As I've said all stream long, I'd start Welbeck. Play 2, Hill, Biol, Tavernier, Rice. I would play Biol and Tavernier. Do you expect Jadon Anthony to moonwalk against Leeds this week now that MJ is managing Burnley? No, I don't. Hi, Dylan. Start 2 out of Semenyo, Rodgers, and Okafor. If we say he will start, covered that. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go for that again. Who to bench between Rodon, Senesi, or Cash? I would bench Matty Cash. Gibbs White in for Palmer, then Gabriel in for Senesi. It's not a bad shout. I think you said this earlier, and I covered it, but I think rolling is also fine, and you can always make these transfers in 36, but yeah, it looks good to me. It really depends. If you're backing Forest to win or get something against Chelsea, then yeah, it's not a bad time to do it. I just don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet. Hi, rank the 3 best Arsenal midfielders or attackers. Very difficult to do. Can we even score more than 1 goal per game? Hopefully we can. I think Eze might be number 1. Gyökeres second, Saka third is my current ranking. I think Rice is probably 4th overall, even though he's not technically an attacking-minded player. Hi, Dylan. I have 5 free transfers thinking about Semenyo to Turkey. If you're going to use those funds to upgrade other areas, then sure, why not? But this could also be an opportunity to buy Munoz already, have him on the bench, because he could go up in price tonight. You could also do a few other things, but yeah, even something like Dubravka to Darlow and start Darlow. Just depends on your team, so difficult for me to say. But yeah, the only sort of circumstance where I would consider the move you just mentioned is if you have 3 or more available transfers, which you do, of course. Sell Hill or Van Heck for Saliba this week. Already have Gabriel. It's not a bad idea, but I'd rather prioritize Munoz as a transfer for 36. So my advice is probably just start what you have and get Munoz in 36. The Gameweek 36, do I move to Munoz, Cherki and Rice, or Saliba, Lacroix, Cherki, or Cherki, Munoz, White / Hincapié? I think Cherki, Munoz, and Hincapié. I wouldn't go for White. I don't think he starts. Is it worth taking a hit, Enzo to Eze or Palmer to Bruno Fernandes? I think Bruno Fernandes is worth the hit. Yeah. Who's better, Gross or Casemiro on the wildcard? That's a good question, and Casemiro is very underrated in FPL this season. I've gone for Gross, personally, but that could go either way. Yeah, I'll probably buy Munoz and then maybe one other. I'm just not really that enticed by their options. Cucurella to Saliba looks good, but as I've mentioned a few times now, I prefer Munoz as a 36 transfer, to be fair, and I don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet against Fulham or West Ham. Hopefully I'm wrong. Thanks, Dylan, you're the man. Much appreciated, Andrew, and good luck for Gameweek 35. Always prioritize Palace boys. Thiago, Gabriel, who? Palace boys, so many uncertainties though. Well, apart from Munoz, I can't really say with my chest who's the best Palace asset. Dean Henderson in goal, but I'm not going to make a goalkeeper move. I don't think so anyway. I could do Verbruggen to Henderson, to be fair. I'll talk about that in my team selection video, but yeah, the outfield players are a bit hit or miss. 2 transfers was going to roll, but Chelsea boys been poor. Thoughts? I get that. They've been really poor. I think Cucurella to Gabriel looks quite good if you have enough funds. I don't, so I'm probably going to just stick with Cucurella for now. But yeah, I think selling the Spaniard for Munoz will be one of my first transfers for 36. Well, the wildcard's always useful. You just have to use it wisely. Hey, Dylan, worth a punt on Gyökeres over Bowen on wildcard? I'd still go for Bowen. I think you outscore Gyökeres comfortably. I said this before, yeah. Based on the fixture, Calvin is okay, but I just don't trust him enough for a captaincy perspective. Double Lee's defense is good this week, but not long term. Sorry, Dylan took a call. I asked if you were really strong on Gross over Tavernier. I prefer Gross. I'm relatively strong on it. It could go either way. I'm probably 60-40 in Gross's favour. Maybe 65-35. Start one of Tavernier, Strauch or Neto. Tavernier. Welcome, Safair. Shall I double up on Arsenal or Leeds defence? Still Arsenal long term. For this week, of course, Leeds look quite appealing, but yeah, it just depends on the context. So I've gone for 2-0 Leeds and 2-1 Arsenal. It could be the other way around. In terms of clean sheet odds, Arsenal are still slightly favoured. But if it's a long-term question, it's always going to be Arsenal. Bench free. Someone's got a broken caps lock. Palmer, Enzo, Hill, Van Heck, Welbeck, Tavernier. I'd definitely start Welbeck. And probably a Chelsea attacker. So I would bench Hill. Probably Van Heck. But I'm not sure if you have to start one of them. Maybe not. I don't think you do. So yeah, those two on the bench and maybe Tavernier. But yeah. 2 or 3 Chelsea attackers doesn't look great. Hey Dylan, Gibbs White and Igor Jesus is facing Chelsea team that is struggling. Gibbs White is enough. I wouldn't go for Igor Jesus personally, but maybe you're onto something. I just think Chelsea will do better now under their interim manager. Wildcard team, what do you think? Yeah, looks good to me. If you're not bench boosting in 36, then it makes sense not to go for Raya and goal alongside Henderson. So Darlow is fine. You start him this week. But I wouldn't go for Canva. I think triple Palace defense is way too much. I know they double in 36, but it's Man City they're facing. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet there. So yeah, I think the thing to do here is maybe replace Canva. With the rest, I'm quite happy with it. But yeah, Gyökeres is a bit too much money. Also, double Arsenal attack. I hope they come into gear and start scoring goals, but I stick to one Arsenal attacker, if that. So probably sell Gyökeres. And but yeah, I'm not against some of the different things you've done. And if you are quite bullish on them, then don't listen to me. Just follow your own gut and see what happens, really. But I think Canva and Gyökeres would be the two I would probably highlight as the weak links, if that. I mean, I'm crazy to double up on Leeds instead of Arsenal on my wildcard. Yeah, on the wildcard, I'd still go for Arsenal double up, personally. Thank you, Safir. As he says, like the video. Welcome, Simeon. Senesi Palmer fuera por Gabriel y quién. Y no sé quién tienes en tu equipo, así que es bastante difícil para decirte, pero con Palmer solo lo vendería si puedes usar ese dinero para mejorar otra parte de tu equipo. Pero sí, Senesi a Gabriel es... Bueno, está mejorando tu equipo seguramente. Pero para el doble que viene ahora, en 36, también tienes a Muñoz, los jugadores de City, como O'Reilly, Haaland obviamente, y uno de Semenyo o Cherky, pero está bien. Para vender a Palmer, bueno, salvo Bruno Fernández, no hay muchos mediocampistas que se destacan en este momento. Sam says, thoughts on this wildcard bench boost in 36. I'm fairly sure I went through this team already. I like the look of it, especially on the bench boost. You've got the 2 goalkeepers I recommended in my wildcard video. There isn't anyone I'd really say, oh, you shouldn't go for him. Double Brighton attack, I mean, looks good for the next 2, particularly Wolves at home, so I'm on board with it overall. Verbruggen, Gabriel, Van Dijk, O'Reilly, Semenyo, Fernandes, Casemiro, Rodgers, Joao Pedro, Thiago, Haaland captain. On the bench, Sanchez, Van Heck, Anderson, Mukiele. Would you start any of my bench options? I'd probably start one of Mukiele or Van Heck over Van Dijk, and based on my scoreline predictions, I'd start Mukiele. So that'd be my advice. The rest is pretty good. Bench 1, Isak, Bernardo Silva or Hinshelwood. Probably Hinshelwood, but he's an awkward player. He could score at any given moment. Yeah. Not a massive fan of Bernardo Silva, but he's been very important for City recently. Yes, Raya over Saliba. Hey Dylan, would you start Okafor if you had him? Depends on who you're starting him over. So in my team, assuming I had Tavernier and stuff like that, maybe I would, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think Okafor starts. Thoughts on Ismail Assar for the double in 36? He is definitely not nailed for minutes, no. We saw him benched in 2 consecutive Premier League games recently. I think he might be benched this weekend with Johnson starting instead. So he's the most appealing midfielder for Palace, but also not secure. So one of Hill or Van Hecke are going to start for me over Mark Cucurella. Watch Chelsea keep a clean sheet now. They've got a decent record against Nottingham Forest, but it is what it is. So Van Hecke, Cucurella, straight swap, that could be what I end up doing, which is why I discussed in my team selection video. I'm quite torn about those 3 defenders. Who would you start between Garner, Van Hecke, and Chow? Van Hecke. Dylan, would you bench Okafor and start Welbeck? I'd just start Welbeck anyway. I think Welbeck will start, but yeah, for those that are quite bullish on Welbeck, you make a good point. Jorginho Rota will likely start one of the next 2 games against Wolves at home or obviously Newcastle away coming up next. But I think Welbeck will start this one. Are we sure that Chelsea are going to win against Nottingham? I went for a 1-1 draw, so no. I only have triple Chelsea because of my double Gameweek 33 bench boost, which I wildcarded into. I use your wildcard team now. Which defender do I put on the bench? Well, I talked about the starting 11 in that video, so it's all laid out there. I wouldn't change anything from what I discussed a few days ago, or in fact, yesterday. Start Strauch or Hill, already have Darlow. I'd still start Strauch. Same team here as yours, only Gabriel instead of Cucurella. That's good. I'd start Gross personally, but yeah, Gabriel over Cucurella is a massive upgrade. Pascal over Tavernier is probably the right play. Well, we'll see. It's a very close call between those 2, but I do like Brighton's prospects against Newcastle. Lacroix or Van Hecke to start? Van Hecke. Rodgers too risky due to Europe? I think he's too risky because of his form, to be quite honest with you, but yeah, I do like him for the next 2. I think he'll start, but the minutes won't be completely locked in. Bench one of Hill, Tavernier, or Justin? I'd bench Hill. Can Bowen outdo Calvert-Lewin? Definitely. In fact, I think he will. Simeon says, what are your thoughts? Pretty solid overall. I agree with your starting 11 for the most part. Something you could do is maybe sell Lefay, although he is facing Wolves away this week, so maybe you can save that for another week. But looking at your squad, I think buying Munoz in 36 would be the play. And I would maybe sell Palmer if you are struggling for funds. And maybe, for example, you can buy Bowen in 37. I'd highly recommend that for you. Either for Welbeck or DCL. But yeah, I would do that. I think for this week, you're good to roll. Yeah, I covered your question, Larkin. Thank you. Much appreciated, Junior. Best of luck to you as well. Not to your club, though. Johnny says, thanks for the reply. Yeah, it's really a toss-up between Gross and Tavernier. I think so. And, I mean, Tavernier did okay for me in the double, but Gross was a standout. He's been really consistent for me, but it can ebb and flow between them. Gordon to Gibbs White. I already have Semenyo, Bruno, Tavernier, and Palmer. Yeah, I think Gordon's a sell, and Gibbs White is one of the most in-form midfielders right now. I think he could disappoint people against Chelsea this week, but he's still a good transfer for the remainder of the season. Watkins and Stack or Rodgers and DCL? I went through this earlier. Both good duos, not much in it. I'd lean towards Watkins and Stack, but only just. Van Hecke or Senesi? Senesi. Darlow or Verbruggen? Darlow. Cherky or Tavernier? Cherky. Dangle or Gross? I'd go for Gross. What's the differential between last season's favourite picks versus this season's? I'd have to say, we'll talk about this later in the season, because I'll be honest with you, last season's a bit of a blur in terms of who was a differential, who wasn't. Jacob Murphy maybe was a good differential. Now he's been just nowhere near good enough from an FPL perspective, so that requires a bit more thought. Hi Dylan, what do you think of my team and bench boost? Lamens, Gabriel, Saliba, Riley, Hill, Fernandez, Cherky, Rodgers, Haaland, Thiago, Bowen, Rovs, Dango, Hill, Gross. Yeah, good squad overall. I'm not a big fan of Lamens, but the rest is very solid. And once again, I think with 36 in mind, I think the plan for you would be to get Munoz. And I'd sell Lamens to Henderson in 36, but for now, you're looking pretty decent. You could sell Lamens to Henderson this week. You could do that, but ultimately it's fine how it is. Need to pick my final Arsenal and City players. Do I go for Gehi and Rice or Saliba Cherki? I'd go for Saliba and Cherki. I'm on wildcard without any Leeds players. Risky decision? It's not absolutely necessary though, but they got a good fixture tonight. And I think Burnley are an unknown entity now with Michael Jackson as their manager. So, yeah, I think it's fine. Maybe Justin as a fifth defender or one of those other options. It could be a centre-back with more DEFCON potential, but yeah, Darlow as a backup goalkeeper. It just really depends what you're looking for, but I think Darlow's better than Dubravka. It just comes down to, are you bench boosting in 36? If so, I'd recommend Raya and Henderson, but Darlow's okay, even though he's facing Tottenham away there. But yeah, I think Darlow would be the sort of standout, really. Who would you replace? Cucurella, Pedro, Palmer? It would be Cucurella for Gabriel. That's the biggest upgrade for sure, but I'd still buy Munoz if possible for 36. I like Thiago this week, but beyond that, the fixtures are quite mixed bag. I think with Palmer, you really just sell if you can go to Fernandes or use those extra funds to spread them around to the rest of your squad. Cheers, Dylan. So for Bruggen over Sanchez is fine. Yeah. I agree with you. I've gone for 1-1 in the Chelsea Forest game and 2-1 for Brighton, but I think Brighton are more likely to keep a clean sheet. Rose is Falling says, hi, have 2 free transfers. I can field a good 11. Should I get Gomez out now or maybe out until next week? Yeah, probably next week then if you are happy with your starting 11, because then it causes a benching dilemma. It's always good to have a good bench option anyway, so I get your question, but if you've got even just a decent choice first on your bench and a solid starting 11, then roll. No early Leeds team leaks. I'll have a look, but I don't expect anything. Probably the Bruggen there, Nuclear, although most people would suggest otherwise. Thank you, Kerwin. Took a pun on Rayan. All the best with that. Best thing to do with differential, I need to catch up on 100 points. Well, I like Pascal Gross. I think Welbeck looks good this week, but the minutes are going to be a concern there. So with Brighton, it's always going to be Gross. Starting Van Heck isn't too shabby, but it's not all about Brighton. There are other teams in the Premier League. So, yeah, I think Eze would be a decent option for the Arsenal attack if you back the Gunners to improve offensively. Bukayo Saka is a very risky play, but it could be worthwhile. I think with both of them as well, you've got the Champions League on Tuesday. Yeah, it's a very quick turnaround, and Arsenal have some tough games coming up, but yeah, it could be worth it. Doubling or tripling up on Arsenal defensively. I mean, I wouldn't say the double up is not really a risky or differential play, but tripling up would be. Start Chow or Mukiele. Thank you, Simeon. Start Strauch or Hill. Already have Darlow. I'd start Strauch. I said this earlier. Want to do... Who? Someone out for Gabriel. Well, anyone out for Gabriel's an upgrade. So yeah, looks good to me. But Palmer to Rodgers or Tavernier to Scott. I'd rather do Palmer to Rodgers. Dior says, Dylan, who to bench? Yeah, I think goalkeeper's fine. Start Darlow. I would start Enzo over Tavernier, but there's not much in it. And it could go either way. I think with the rest, you've got it sorted. Play Tavernier or Ampadu. It's close, but I'd go for Tavernier. Looking at fixtures, Thiago doesn't look amazing. Agreed. He's a bit fixture-proof and a bit weird to predict. So yeah, I think Igor Thiago is... I want to say an FPL troll, but not a traditional FPL asset. Let's put it that way. We've only got 5 minutes left until the deadline. Make sure to lock in your teams. I've answered dozens of questions already. Be sure to like this stream, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and all that good stuff as we're looking to reach 39,000 subscribers. And yeah, we're 50 away now. So we have made progress today, but let's try to get to 39k. I think by Tuesday, that Use Your Fantasy deadline stream, we can definitely hit that new goal. In the meantime, there will be a best squad for matchday 16, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals, my team selection as well, with free transfers in the Champions League. And after that, the focus will shift towards FPL again with a Saturday deadline next time round. And that's where I'll do the transfer tips, the best wildcard squad, and my team selection. So it's only a matter of time before we hit 39,000. And if I cover the World Cup this summer, which depends on your feedback and also the way you support the channel, well, we could reach 40,000. very soon, either in June or July, and that would be a great way to sort of transition towards next season. Who to bench between Van Dijk, Dango, and Mbeumo? I'd bench Van Dijk. Bench 1, Eze, Stack, Sesko. I'd bench Sesko. On the bench first, Hill or Van Hecke? I prefer Van Hecke at the moment, but not by much. Ahmed, I did cover your question earlier, mate, and I said to bench Cucurella and Hill. What do you think about DCL as captain? Was covered a few times, and I don't trust him, is basically the bottom line of it. I think Leeds win, but Burnley have already beaten Leeds this season. That's true. What's your overall points last season? I don't know, over 2,400. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was still disappointing. It's about the rank, not the points for me. Who would you go for captain in my team? Haaland. If you want to go for something a bit different, Thiago would be very enticing. What's the news on Pedro and Palmer? Are they likely to play? I think they will play, yeah. I'm not sure what's the sort of full situation. Obviously, Joao Pedro just came back from an injury, and there's no guarantee he starts. But with the predicted lineups I saw, and they also play on Monday, by the way, I think they will start, and hopefully they do. I need some points, but yeah, they haven't been particularly great. Thank you, Ian. Very kind of you. Dylan's a clever man. The way his videos just make me outshine my friends in the mini league this season is just remarkable, and I'm enjoying myself. Well, you have said that whenever you watch my streams, you get green arrows, so hopefully that continues, but much appreciated. Who to bench between Van Dijk, Dango, and Mbeumo? Van Dijk. Hi, Dylan. Will there be a World Cup fantasy? Yes, I will be playing it, and I covered the last one, even the Club World Cup last summer. If people want to see it, I'm open to making content. Bench boost this week. Depends on your squad. I can't really say without knowing anything about your team, but I think 36 or 37 might be a better time to bench boost, but maybe that's not the case for you. Senesi or Van Hecke? Senesi. Forgot to free hit last week using triple captain and 36, and my team is very similar to yours. That's a good question. I definitely use the website FPL.team or any resource where you can preview future game weeks. 38 is a very underrated time to free hit. I think that could be really enticing. But yeah, 37 is another one where we could see certain teams have very quick turnarounds and rotation as well. So it can honestly work very well in either game week, to be fair. But yeah, I can see why you lean towards 37. Definitely use FPL.team and other websites and compare them. But that's a decision to make and finalize as you get closer. You don't have to lock it in right now. Double Leeds defense or Van Hecke? Double Leeds defense. Doble, Matthias. Captain Gabriel or Calvert-Lewin? I'd rather Captain Gabriel from the two. We've only got just over a minute left. Lock in your teams. Senesi, Van Hecke, Tavernier. I can only play one. Very, very close. I'd probably go for Tavernier. Only one to play. Munoz or Lacroix? Munoz. Bench 2, Senesi, Tavernier, Aronson, Welbeck. I would bench Aronson, surprisingly, and Senesi. Who does Van Hecke start over? Maybe Anderson? Nobody else. I wouldn't captain DCL. If you want to go for it, back your gut. I'm just not really feeling it. Cherky or Semenyo? A slight preference for Cherky. Thank you, Eddie, and hopefully you enjoyed your birthday this week. Semenyo or Welbeck? Semenyo. Not much in it. Powell says World Cup, yes. A lot of people have been saying that, so yeah, if we if the sort of feedback is there, the likes, the subscriptions, the sharing, the hyping, the commenting, then yeah, I'd be open to doing it. Just the reply, Dylan, mate. Thank you, DM McDonald. Always good talking to you. Senesi or Van Hecke to start? Senesi. Start Chow or Brobby? Start Aronson or Tavernier? That's a really close one. I'd probably go for Tavernier. No transfers for me, Andres, but I would have free transfers next week, and I can get some Palace players in. Maybe Henderson in for Verbruggen, and I could also buy, or to be fair, maybe for Darlow would be better. Actually, no. There's no need to do that. Yeah, no, I'll talk more about that, but Munoz will be the priority, and Gabriel would be another player I want to get, especially for 37. Start Hill or Cucurella? I've got Cucurella last on my bench, but to be honest, I think I'd put Cucurella first. But either way, we are locked in. Oh, I saved it just in time. Not that it matters, really. I've gone for double Brighton in my starting 11. Van Hecke and Gross. Can the Dutchman make it 6 returns in a row? We will find out. But yeah, I think Cucurella over Hill just, but it also depends on, are you covering Bournemouth defensively? They are ahead in the clean sheet odds, to be fair. But yeah, I've got Senesi starting regardless, so I shouldn't regret it too much unless Hill scores a goal. I don't know why I did that, by the way, but he's got 2 own goals recently, Mr. Hill. I'm benching Joao Pedro for Gross. Am I sane? Being sane is good, mate. That means you're not crazy. Are you insane? Not necessarily. Joao Pedro might not even start, and he hasn't been in great form. Yeah, exactly. Time is up so fast. This stream has whizzed by. Locked in indeed. Rodgers or Dewsbury Hall? Rodgers this week. Semenyo or Cherky? I said this earlier. Cherky, not much in it. Kelleher or Martinez? This week, Kelleher. Would you keep Gross on the free hit this week? Possibly. I did actually mention him when someone asked me about the best team for Gameweek 35 specifically, so I'm not against that. For this question, by the way, just to kind of reference my scoreline predictions, I went for 3-1 3-1 Villa. Water break needed. And for the other game, I went for 2-2 between Brentford and West Ham. So technically, unless there's a booking or something or save points kind of settles it, maybe Martinez is the slightly better pick, but I don't think either will keep a clean sheet. But I think the odds will probably favour Brentford a little bit more. Easy says, World Cup fantasy will be like UCL fantasy. 1 million will play. Very likely that you will be the only one live streaming while the others from live streaming after long FPL or taking a rest. Well, yeah, I enjoy it. It's just also about finding that balance with my other commitments because, like I said, I've been fully at it all season. Not many breaks covering FPL and UCL fantasy. I did the Club World Cup as well until July. So, yeah, after that, I mean, I was still preparing graphics for FPL and then shortly afterwards doing preliminary drafts. And then when FPL launched, I was doing content even on my holiday, believe it or not. So, yeah, it's just about finding the sweet spot, and that's what I'm going to try to do. But I would love to cover it if people want to see it. Best of luck as well, Saxo. Much appreciated. What I'm going to do is gift 5 memberships today and gift 5 in the Champions League stream. I think that's what I'm going to do, to be fair. Or do you want me to gift all 10 now? Let me know in the live chat. It is obviously May now. So if we do hit 100 likes, I know we're quite close to that, then I will gift 10 memberships today. So be sure to do so if you haven't done so already. It would be massively appreciated. When was the last time you visited the FIFA website? Well, basically since the Club World Cup final, I guess. So the 13th of July of 2025. I just got Gabriel for Cucurella and banked the other transfer. Nice. Yeah, that's a good transfer. I wish I could do that. Ian says, just went with Cherky as my captain. Well, I hope Cherky blanks. I hope City blank and that they lose and Everton help Arsenal, but that's just me being very delusional. Forgot to change captain in the second dad's team. Don't have Haaland, Semenyo as the captain. Could be a blessing in disguise. Who even knows at this point? But yeah, Haaland is definitely my captain. And for 36, he'll be my triple. That's going to be locked in as soon as the deadline is over. Well, it is over, but as soon as the game updates. We'd love to see your World Cup coverage. All the best, Dylan. Thank you, Pratik, and it would be good talking to you there. And the same goes for everybody else. And yeah, definitely people from UCL Fantasy too who don't play FPL. I'm sure some of them will also tune in. What can someone do to get the membership, Dylan? Well, what helps apparently is being active in the chat. So if you check the top fans, I don't know why they call it top fans, but the leaderboards for the community, you'll see. Basically, the higher you are, the better chance you have of winning a membership. But I just click a button and YouTube does its thing, to be quite honest with you. I did really well in the Club World Cup. Yeah, same. Top 10k, I'm pretty sure, just like the Euros. But yeah, not happy with the result of the Club World Cup. Unfortunately with that, Euro and World Cup, you can't look at past scores. I've made a list of them just because I make content and people like to ask that sort of thing. And I typically do quite well with those fantasy games, just like the Champions League. Bruno captain. Yeah, that was definitely a consideration for me. And for 37 or 38, Fernandes will definitely be up there. But there's no debate for double game at 36, unfortunately. Maybe O'Reilly as a differential punt, but I'm not looking at Palace players. Semenyo Cherky could enter the conversation, but I think Haaland would be the go-to. Yeah, give 10 memberships. Dylan, come on, guys, jam the like button. Yes, let's try to get to that. A late push. We are 7 away. We can do it. Come on. 10 memberships. So you might be thinking, why should I like this stream? Well, apart from me answering dozens of questions, sometimes even the same person typing the same thing over and over and over, I still responded out of the goodness of my heart, if I even have that. But also I went through stats, predicted lineups, a lot of different things. And not just that, by the way. I covered a lot of different things throughout the week. A double upload yesterday, the best wildcard squad, my team selection, different strategies, but also different approaches to end this season as strongly as possible. The transfer tips as well on Wednesday. And the UCL fantasy content. There's a lot that I do on this channel, and there's going to be more over the weekend. So on Monday, there will likely be another double upload there for UCL fantasy and a deadline stream on Tuesday where I'll be answering hundreds of questions. That stream is going to be very busy and chaotic indeed, and my beloved Arsenal will play. Don't unlike just because I said Arsenal, okay? Well, if you want, do that if you will, but please don't. 10 memberships para hoy suena perfecto. Sí, para mí también, pero todo depende de si llegamos a 100 likes. Me gusta. Dylan, hope Van Heck does great like he did in the double game week. Yes, he was a very pleasant surprise, and he also, well, he got the assist against Tottenham even though he made the mistake. So I'm very happy with him in general. Try not to spam me for the leaderboard thing. Yeah, there's a fine balance, of course. The admins and stuff, they know what's spamming and what's not. Just typing the same thing back to back to back. Yeah, that's spamming. Thoughts on complaining from the fans, especially Arsenal, about PSG Bayern? Not sure many Arsenal fans did complain about that, to be honest. I've also seen people say, oh, Arsenal fans are complaining about the referee. I haven't seen that much, to be fair. The only thing that people pointed out, which I think is fair to say, is that once the penalty is given, it's not a clear and obvious error to then go back on it. And if it was for Atletico, I think the penalty will probably stand. But I don't think Arsenal fans have really been unreasonable recently. I mean, there's always going to be some idiots on Twitter, but you can't base a whole fan base off a few people online, in my opinion. I won't lose sleep over it, but definitely prefer Arsenal winning the league. Really don't want them to win the treble. They haven't been standout enough either. Oh, is that Man City? Yeah, well, hopefully they don't. And if they have breached the rules and if they have been guilty, hopefully justice is served. But I don't expect that to happen, to be honest with you. Yeah, with Arsenal, I want to win the double, the Premier League and Champions League, but that's a big, big task, and 6 games away from glory. I hope they can somehow get the job done. It's the best FPL live. Thank you, Pratik. Much appreciated. PSG Bayern top 10 Champions League match. I think that's a reasonable shout, yeah. Now, just like the Atletico Arsenal game, the penalties were very dubious and soft. I personally wouldn't have given any of them as penalties, but just my opinion. What do you think about Palmer to Eze next week to free budget for 2 more transfers, or is there a better solution? No, yeah, to free up funds, it looks absolutely fine, and Arsenal have some of the best fixtures over the next 4 game weeks, so it looks pretty good to me. And I talked about Eze in my best wildcard squad video, so I'm on board with that. I'm just wondering what your other moves would be. But, yeah, I think Palmer would be one of the best cash cows to sort of find the funds necessary to buy Gabriel back, which I also want to do very soon, especially for Cucurella, who is stinking out the gaff. Is Brentford a crazy pick for the last man standing? Possibly. I mean, the upcoming fixtures aren't great. Even West Ham isn't the easiest of games right now. I usually, to captain, wrap in Euro and World Cup, 10.5k UCL at the moment, 900k FPL and 670 in EFL. Oh, crap. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I was like, C and then wrap? You're going to captain? Yeah, I got it in the end. Don't worry. Yeah, good ranks in general. Obviously, FPL's a bit disappointing, and I'm still hoping to somehow get into the top 100k. I would be chuffed with that, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I think the Eze penalty is soft. I wouldn't have given it in the first place, but once it's given, I think it's not a clear and obvious error to overturn it. And I don't think it would have been overturned if it was for the home side, who put a lot of pressure on the referee, just like Simeone. PSG against Bayern Munich game was insane. Fantasy players must have hauled a fortune. Yeah, except defenders. Upamecano was the only one to get something with 8 points. By the way, check out the UCL Fantasy channels on WhatsApp. There's a broadcast channel on Instagram. There's also a dedicated UCL Fantasy Instagram page. There's great content on there, so make sure to check that out. And it's growing and growing. Yeah, we'll hunt down the spammers. Yeah, that's what we're going to try to do. We're 2 likes away. Come on. Let's do it. I don't know why I said that, by the way, but whatever. So yeah, let me just put a link to the UCL Fantasy Instagram page. But it's definitely worth having a look. So, World Cup Fantasy thumbnail will be glorious, more North American style. Yeah, and recently for FPL UCL Fantasy, I've been experimenting with some different thumbnails, and people are liking them. So yeah, more to come. And with the World Cup, I usually distinguish them too, so it will have its own thing if I do content, which all depends on your support. I hope this Game Week 35 I get 60 points and above. It depends, because if it's a high-scoring week, 60 points might not be great. But yeah, hopefully we just get the green arrows. That's the most important thing. And all the best with your mini-league too. Bruno or Rodgers for challenge? Bruno for me. I agree with you, and the Eze pen. Simeone's a bit of a cheat, but everyone cheats now. Yeah, look, I mean, I like the Argentinians at Atletico, Alvarez, Simeone, but yeah, I can understand why English people hate Simeone, and I obviously have dual nationality, so yeah. You could say, oh, you should be conflicted, Dylan. Yeah? England's the country that's given you everything. Maybe. But obviously that's a legendary moment, the red card for David Beckham. I need a membership. Yeah, well, you get a lot of access. Many perks. I can't even speak right now. It has been over 2 hours, by the way, and I'm a bit sleep deprived, so forgive me a little bit. But you get early access to my videos, proud to comments, which is very useful, especially in UCL Fantasy Deadline streams, but yeah, it will always help you, even with the FPL ones too. They're complaining about the defending. Well, the thing is, they're different styles. I mean, back in the day, Chelsea won Premier League titles and competed, and they even won Champions Leagues because of their defence. So, defence ultimately wins you titles, and Arsenal have by far the best defence in the Champions League this season. So, that could be the reason why they go on to win it, and I hope they do. But yeah, I think the PSG Bayern game had amazing attacking. Fantastic football, not robotic, free-flowing, what you want to see. But there was also some questionable defending, in my opinion. So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But yeah, PSG and Bayern are the best teams in the world at the moment. But the best team doesn't always win the Champions League. Yeah, all good, Twister Parky. It'd be interesting to see if Arsenal are going to prefer the league over the UCL. I want both. I just think with the position Arsenal have been in, leading the league all season, and also being so close to winning the league in recent years. Also, over 20 years without the last one. I think a lot of Arsenal fans prefer the league, but I mean, look, I'm not saying one over the other, but just because Arsenal have never won the Champions League, that's always the goal for me. That's the big one. And if Arteta can do that, he's got so much credit in the bank, even with the poor football at times and some questionable decisions. He is a top manager. His record is very good for Arsenal, especially in the Champions League. I hope he can get over the line because he's done a lot of good work at Arsenal. So it's just about that final step. I went for Strout captain. Good luck. I mean, that could outscore Haaland. I hope he does. I really hope he does. We're going to witness another great football on Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, Bayern PSG is on Wednesday. So basically the way it goes is last time out it was Tuesday. Arsenal game was on Wednesday. They then switch. So Arsenal will now be on Tuesday and the Bayern game will be on the Wednesday. Dylan's doing a great job. He needs a water break. Yes, my voice is on its last legs. When is World Cup Fantasy game going live? Probably late May. I don't work with the developers of that game, by the way, but that's what usually happens. Late May. So there's a bit of like time. Let's say 3 to 4 weeks until the matches actually start. FPL needs to adapt. The UCL is a much better game. I know some people will love what you're saying to Stepaki. I'm telling you that now. Why would we hate Simeone? Yeah. I think Simeone is one of the best managers in world football, but he is a bit of a tit sometimes. But I don't hate him. Next UCL deadline will start with Harambal Derby. Well, the last time Arsenal played Atletico at the Emirates, it was 4-0. More of the same, please. For Arsenal, just to specify. Cannot wait to go back to Hillsborough tomorrow. New owner, new beginnings, and we are getting our old badge back. Well, that's good to hear, Andrew Barton. I actually wasn't aware of that, and yeah, hopefully things go well for your club. Question for you, Dylan, or anyone. What was David Beckham's first game for Man United? I wouldn't be able to tell you. Don't say it's Arsenal. Is this like a trivia question where you actually know the answer? I'm going to search it up, by the way, so I'm not going to like be like, oh yeah, he played against Preston or whatever the team he played against. I was going to swear there, but let's keep it PG. First game for United. Or is it against Brighton? There must be a reason why you mentioned it. Yeah, Brighton, of course. I should have known. I should have bloody known. Does anyone know if FIFA will have a predictor game? I hate those predict 5 games that UCL have. Well, back in the day with the Champions League, it was a bit different. Now they've gone for predict 6. I think the World Cup do have a predictor game, yes. Especially with a bracket. They have a bracket for World Cup fantasy. We had that with the Club World Cup last year as well. If Arsenal go to the final, will they be able to keep their attacking style of PSG Bayern? Yes, I mean, they beat Bayern 3-1. Ultimately, Arsenal aren't near the level that they were when they beat Bayern earlier this season. They beat PSG as well, and they were very competitive. I think if Arsenal had more quality in their attack, they would have gone through to the final last year. They actually had far better XG than PSG, but football's not played on paper or behind a calculator. It's about the quality in front of goal. Yeah, Arsenal can win the Champions League, and I'm not sure about this deserving thing, because Arsenal have considered 5 goals in the Champions League. They've also scored one of the most in this competition. They finished top of the league phase. They're the only unbeaten team, and if they remain unbeaten, they're going to win the Champions League. So I think Arsenal would deserve it, but it's about the last 2 games. If Arsenal perform to a high level against Atletico in the semi-finals and then in the final and win it, then yes, they would deserve it. Never have I ever played the World Cup fantasy. This will be my first. Yeah, there's a few people who have said that, and yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had. Interesting. Can we get a poll on Arteta for the league or UCL? What do the peeps say? Yeah, I will be cutting soon, but because we have got to 100 likes, I'm pretty sure, right? Or am I at it? Yeah, we have got to 100 likes, so I'm going to give 10 memberships today. Not just the 5. I'm getting 10. So let's see who gets them. Dylan, please have Trump and Infantino smooching each other as your thumbnail for the World Cup Fantasy Dueliers. Wow. Yeah, well, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but that's some crazy work. I didn't expect that level of insults. Yeah, it's kind of weird, to be fair. I did do like a funny Club World Cup Fantasy meme with the early deadline from Matchday 1. If you know, you know. So it's not the first time that I do something like that. September 1992, League Cup away to Brighton. I wasn't even born. Wow, good times. Not that I was... Okay, let's move on. Leeds versus Burnley. I just need Leeds to win this and DCL to score 2 goals. You're asking for a lot there. Calvert-Lewin is not that guy. And I would happily be proven wrong, by the way. You have the program. That's great. I mean, all of my programs are quite modern. I've got a few from 2007, if you will. None from the 90s. Technically, this is probably my first World Cup fantasy. Yeah, well, I covered World Cup Fantasy a few years ago. You weren't around back then when it comes to my channel, but yeah, good times. Nice one. Thank you, Andrew Barton. Yes, enjoy it. And a nice way to celebrate Hillsborough getting their crest and their club back. Pratik as well with the membership. Very active in the chat today. Also to Bamad. Also Ara 99. Is that how you say it? And Lukey99, a few 99ers in the house. I'm also from that year, so big up. Arsenal going back in for Nabry this summer. No, just... No, please. We'll go for someone else. Yes, La Scaloneta. Scaloni. Dylan, which team do you think will win the Champions League? Well, I hope it's Arsenal. I think realistically the team that wins between Bayern and PSG will win the final. I'd probably lean towards Bayern. They do have the home advantage. And I think that'll be another cracking affair. Maybe not to the same level as the first leg, but who knows. I predict the opening match World Cup Fantasy will have problems like Club World Cup Fantasy. Well, hopefully they actually learn and that they actually listen to the feedback from last time. We're all West Ham. Not for 36, but for this week, sure, why not? Oops, caps. When Dennis Law scored the goal that relegated United, how much do you think the matchday ticket cost? £1? Who even knows? But yeah, I was surprised by the caps lock. Thank you, Gustavo. Gracias por tu contenido, Dylan. Saludos desde Costa Rica. ¿Cuáles son tus top 5 favoritos para el Mundial en orden? Creo que España... Sí, últimamente la gente está diciendo Francia, pero para mí España, Francia, Argentina, Inglaterra. Nah, creo que Inglaterra es más favorito que Argentina. Sí, entonces Inglaterra tercero, Argentina cuarto. Y ojalá que Argentina gane la cuarta, pero bueno. Quinto. Nunca se puede negar a Brasil en un mundial, pero están medio flojos. Alemania no son lo mismos, no está Italia. Holanda nunca lo ganó. Portugal, sí, Portugal, tiene que ser Portugal. Y te digo la verdad, creo que Portugal es más favorito que Argentina. Pero mira, en los últimos 5 o 6 años, para mí Argentina la mejor selección lejos. Ganó 4 títulos seguidos, pero ya el hambre no es lo mismo y es muy difícil mantenerse en el cima siempre. Así que sí, creo que ese sería los primeros 5. Yo pondría a Portugal bastante arriba, pero lo que le puede costar el título es Roberto Martínez como técnico. Do you think they'll have new chips in World Cup this time? Power captain was so broken. They had that in the last World Cup and also in the Club World Cup. I think they'll keep it, to be fair. Thank you for the membership, Dylan. You've got a wonderful way to engage your FPL audience. Very kind words, mate. Thank you very much. And I'm going to read your other comment, which says, I guess it's not wrong to say that the team who wins UCL are deserving champions. However, converse can't always be true. A team may lose the UCL, but still be a deserving candidate. Yeah. Like, for example, if Arsenal beat Atletico and then they play well in the final, and I just hope they don't lose it, but yeah, I think Arsenal would be a deserving champion, but then it's about winning it. Wait until FIFA adds ads to their fantasy. We'll see. Let's have some faith. I think the contender for the Ballon d'Or is a bit, I wouldn't say meaningless, but it's a bit redundant because the World Cup's going to have a massive impact, but Harry Kane would certainly be up there for me. I just want to say you're a great dedicated person. You're definitely top 5 FPL content creator. Wish you the best. Thank you very much, Peshang, and good luck for the rest of the season. And let me know if you want to see World Cup Fantasy too. And I definitely recommend having a look at UCL Fantasy as well. I think Arsenal have a better chance to win the league. Bayern and PSG are too good. But it's a one-off game. Anything can happen. And Arsenal are sort of primed for the cup competitions. I mean, they reached the final of the Carabao Cup, the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. They went very far in the Champions League last 2 years. They've got a great record in this competition. So I get what you're saying. But ultimately, Arsenal can win all their games in the Premier League and still fall short on goal difference or goals scored. Whilst in the Champions League, if they win their next 2 games, they are champions. It's as simple as that. Wow, 40p, that's ridiculous. But then again, inflation, there's a lot of things behind that. Leeds versus Burnley is the lineup out, Dylan? Yeah, the lineup has been out for some time now, to be fair. So I'll probably have a look there before wrapping up, and I'm going to gift 5 more memberships. So let me get Leeds up and Burnley. So I already showed my FPL challenge team and my predictions. So yeah. Darlow, Bogle, Justin, Strauch, Rodon, Biol, Ampadu, Tanaka, Stack, Okafor, Calvert-Lewin. So Okafor does start. Oh dear, people are not going to be happy with me on that one. Okafor is the surprise there. So pretty much. Yeah, no, Aronson. Aronson's on the bench. That's the big shock there. Okafor on the left, Stack on the right. The rest was correct for me, but from me, but yeah. Okafor does start. I think he could do fairly well, actually. So yeah, hopefully he doesn't for the sake of those that benched him. Let's go to Burnley now with Michael Jackson as their manager. So Dubravka, Walker, Hartman, Esteve, Anthony Humphreys, Chuana, Ekdal, Fleming, Ward-Prowse, Lawrence. So I got 10 out of 11 correct as well there. So Chuana was the one I got wrong. So Edwards is the one on the bench. So there you go. Both lineups covered. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. And yeah, thanks to those that liked. Then we got this to over 100 likes. So I am a man of my word. I'm going to give 5 more memberships to some lucky viewers. You'll have this for an entire month. Unfortunately, it's not lifetime, but it's still something. How big is it for the Premier League and Spurs itself if they're relegated? Well, it's massive for Spurs. I think they will. I think they will go back up, but I think some of their fans would maybe fear the worst there. Bomastico says, Dylan, me. Well, good luck. I have no influence on who wins it. Need to add translation for anyone not speaking non-English. I'm pretty sure there are some auto-generated captions. It would be a lot of manual work if I did that, and also I only speak 2 languages, to be fair. In today's money, that would be £4.50, £5. Yeah, that's still ridiculously cheap. But now tickets are 35, 70 quid. Yeah, sometimes even more than that, especially with Arsenal. If we win the UCL, people will say we had an easy route to the final. But that's why. We won the league phase, we beat Bayern, we beat Inter away, Atletico Madrid at home. We did the job in the league phase to get into a position where we've got a more favourable draw. So, yeah, people complain about anything, basically. If Arsenal win, they complain. If they don't win, they complain. Yeah, just Arsenal win, and there you go. World Cup 26 favourites: Spain, France, Argentina, England, Portugal. I think Portugal over Brazil, and I'd arguably have Portugal higher than England and possibly Argentina. But as I said in Spanish, Argentina have been the best national team for the past 7 years, and they've won 4 trophies in a row. It's hard to maintain that sort of hunger and to be at the top for so long, but yeah, they deserve to be up there for sure. Where did Eric Cantona go? Never heard of him up to the date. Where did he go? Well, he does a lot of adverts and he does some things for UEFA from time to time. Yeah, no, Aronson, damn. Do you have him? Okafor will be subbed off around 70. Yeah, or maybe even earlier. Twisted Parky says Leeds 2, Bournemouth 0. 1-1 for the next game. Newcastle 1, Brighton 1, Sunderland 1, Wolves 0. Arsenal 2-0. I hope so. Bournemouth 2-1, United 2-1, Villa 2-0, Chelsea, Forest 1-1, but might go Forest, City 2-0. Yeah, we've got a few similar predictions. Yeah, Aronson on the bench. FPL sucks. I hate no subs. Oh, yeah, so you've got Okafor then. Okafor starting, goddammit. I literally hope he doesn't score nor assist. I will be pissed. Yeah, I don't blame you there. Dylan, welcome new members. Yes, welcome aboard to Abhinav, to New Gandor, to Broski Gaming Squad, to Hangzothal, and FPL Estor. Big up to all of you. Should FPL reduce the prices of big player picks next season? Well, yes, because the likes of Saka, Palmer, Watkins haven't delivered. Isak, there are plenty of examples where that came from. Even Wirtz, I thought he'd be a bargain at 8.5, and he's turned out to be, well, a bit of a robbery. And come to think of it, Dylan, which team do you support for those of us who we are not aware? Arsenal. I don't have the Arsenal flag here for decoration. The same goes for Argentina. Those are, well, my club and country. So, yeah, that is my club for my sins. Throwing cats among the pigeons. Easy route is undeniable, though. Yeah, but Leverkusen, for example, beat City in the league phase. Sporting beat PSG. You've got to beat what's in front of you. And let's see if Arsenal beat Atletico. Otherwise, people won't be saying this. See you, Dylan, for your Gameweek 36 videos and deadline stream signing off. You get some rest too? Yes, and I'm going to eat. I'm actually starving right now, and I'm going to be working on some Use Your Fantasy content over the weekend and having it ready for the Monday, and there'll be a deadline stream next Tuesday too. The Legend of Renegade says, do you think FPL will nerf Defcons next year? I think they should keep it consistent because it's a bit confusing to people, because when I'm explaining, I'm like, oh yeah, so a player needs 12 defensive contributions if they're a midfielder or forward, but only 10 for a defender. I mean, it's not that complicated, but for new players, it's going to be a bit all over the place. But yeah, I think the UCL system is a bit more consistent and easy to understand. I favour Bayern or PSG final, but if Arsenal get there, they should not be underestimated. Arsenal have a different style, more pragmatic, but they are better at this than PSG and Bayern. Well, yeah, and also, if Bayern beat Arsenal in the league phase, we wouldn't be talking about this because it would likely be a PSG-Bayern final, assuming they would win their semi-finals anyway. So, yeah, Arsenal did their thing in the league phase and throughout the tournament. Hopefully they do it for the next 2 matches and are crowned Champions League winners. That's what I want. Yeah, I have Aronson. I've had so many benchings this season. That is very unfortunate. Yeah, I talked about having it over Aronson for some people, but I still thought Aronson would start. Arsenal's the team of Dylan. Well. Hope they don't bottle it up. Well, I hope not. I hope they just perform well and give a good account of themselves. And yeah, if they win the next 6 games, I will be having the time of my life, football-wise. Although Argentina winning the World Cup is up there as well. Do you think bonus points will be different next season? They made a few changes this year, so it's possible that they do something like that, to be fair. And when I say this year, I mean this season. But yeah, I wouldn't discount that. I think there will be a few minor tweaks. We're talking about Michael Jackson as coach in Burnley, but never see his face. I need to search. I actually don't know what he looks like, to be fair. Van Heck did win the poll, by the way. I'm going to end that one. Very close between him and Hill. And let's see if I made the right decisions, captaining Haaland and with this starting 11. But I've got 3 transfers now in Double Gameweek 36, and the triple captain will be active, and all will be covered in my team selection video, the transfer tips, and the best wildcard squad in the build-up to that deadline. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found insightful, then you know the drill. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with those who love FPL and UCL fantasy. There'll be a best squad for matchday 16, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals, and my team selection with another deadline stream next Tuesday. I wish you all the best of luck until the end of the season. Get those green arrows, win your mini leagues, and by watching my content, you'll put yourself in a great position to do so. A big up to the new members as well, and thanks to the members, the patrons, the super chatters. You're massively appreciated. And if you want to see World Cup fantasy content, then show the love and the support so that I know for sure that you want to see it in June and July, and that'll be another fantasy game added to the list. But I wish you all the best of luck. Like I said, enjoy the football. That's the most important thing, and I'll see you very soon for the UCL fantasy content.